Grand Rising. Hello. Hello. Good morning, everybody. We're going to be going over the astrology of the week ahead. Let's wait for everybody to come in on the live on Instagram. This is being recorded and it's going to be posted to YouTube later today. It is December 15th, 2025, and we are starting this around 12 p.m. Pacific time. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Excited to tap in this morning or this afternoon, actually, and go over the astrology of the week with y'all. How's everybody doing? Sepa! I finally caught you live. Yay! Thank you for being here, Misa. Hello, hello. There's Lucy. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's let everybody come in. How's everybody doing? How has this full moon in Gemini cycle been? It's been a little messy for folks. It's been a little wild. Um, got the lead. Yes, I've been good. I've been hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. Okay, I've been dealing with some insomnia. So if you guys see some dark circles under my eyes, that's because I haven't been sleeping. I'm telling you, I don't know what it is. When the weather gets cold, my 12th house and my sleep, it just gets messed up. I also think whenever I have like a full moon in my fourth, eighth, of my 12th house, because I have Gemini in the fourth, I also deal with insomnia. The fourth house tends, I have fourth house in Gemini, and in my 12th house is in Aquarius. And so my subconscious, unconscious realm is very mentally active. And I feel like the full moon in Gemini cycle that we've been in, which is ending this week with our new moon in Sag, has just been bringing a lot of anxiety and stress. And it's been bringing a lot of mental stimulation, a little, a little bit of mental overwhelm for many people, especially if you're a mutable person like myself. If you're like a Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sag, you have those in your big three. You've probably been feeling very anxious, or you've just been feeling very alert or very hyper aware of things, or your mind's probably been racing. And that's because we've been in this full moon in Gemini cycle. But the energy is going to be resetting this week. Thank goodness. We have our new moon in Sagittarius coming up on Friday, Saturday, and then we also have Mars who just ingressed into Capricorn today. So we're going to be talking about that. Someone said it's been very intense. My family's definitely shedding some emotional junk. I'm just ready for Uranus to leave Taurus. Yeah, Uranus going back into Taurus has been. Have you guys noticed over the last, well, it actually was all throughout Scorpio season, but also I've been seeing it this month. There's been like record-breaking sales of like art pieces. So I think like one of Van Gogh's, I think Frida Kahlo, um what's his name? Gustavo Clint. There was a Clint. He's another artist. There's been a lot of these art pieces that have been like selling for like millions and billions of dollars and stuff. There's been like, record-breaking sales when it comes to art. And that's because of the Uranus going back into Taurus. That's because Uranus going back into Taurus. Because Taurus is the sign of money, but it's also the sign of art. It has a lot to do with art and beauty and things like this, right? Because it's ruled by Venus. So that's what the Uranus and Taurus. But what I've also been noticing since Uranus has gone back into Taurus is a lot of fixed signs. So Taurus is a fixed sign. If you are an Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, or Taurus, Uranus going back into Taurus has been causing a lot of instability and has been causing a lot of like liberation and freedom, and it's brought back a lot of problems that fixed signs thought they had overcome once Uranus left Taurus and dipped his toes into Gemini in the middle of this year. And now that Uranus has gone back into Taurus, one of the things I've noticed is that for a lot of fixed signs, Aquarius, Scorpio, Leo, Taurus, a lot of issues and problems that they thought they had overcome have like resurfaced, have like come back. And there's this energy of kind of like wanting to like hold others accountable, wanting to liberate or free ourselves, or even being very rebellious, or even being very like wanting really intense dramatic change and expecting something different and kind of like demanding that. One of the things that I always think about when I'm thinking about Uranus, right? I always think of Uranus as a very powerful planet, and I always think of Uranus as kind of like one of the old gods. Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius, In Aquarius, in the traditional ruler of Aquarius is Saturn. And so what's really interesting is with the sign of Aquarius, we get rulership of Saturn and Uranus. And we tend to think of Saturn as being more cold, more constricting, more traditional even, we would say. But I want you guys to start thinking about, Saturn from his masculine perspective, from his Aquarian perspective. I think, and also understanding Uranus through the sign of Aquarius. And in one of those ways that I want you guys to start thinking about Uranus and Saturn's, co-rulership over Aquarius is thinking of Uranus as a sign of power and thinking of Aquarius as a sign of power. Because or Uranus is a planet of power and and Aquarius is a sign of power. Because one of the things I want you guys to understand about Uranus is he defied the gods when it comes to, mythology. Uranus is he was like the king of the Titans, and he rebelled against Zeus's decree and against like, the Greek or the Greek gods that we know. He rebelled against them as the king of the Titans by giving humanity science, by giving humanity technology, by giving humanity fire. And so one of the things that's so interesting about, people that have a strong Uranian imprint in their chart um, is not only are they rebellious, but they also tend to embody qualities of leadership and authority. And they tend to be very powerful, or they can have that power. And what's so interesting about Uranian people, when listen, and what I mean by Uranian people, I'm talking about people that have Sun conjunct Uranus, Moon conjunct Uranus, Uranus on the ascendant. There's a really strong Uranian imprint in their chart. Is they tend to be they can be, I don't want to say tend to, they can be very bossy and very authoritative, but they could try to claim power in spaces that they're not welcome in. So this is like, being like the first female principal or being like the first female lawyer within like, a group of male lawyers or being like the first female engineer or being like the first person of color to break into a certain level of power or authority or a certain career thing or something like this. And this is one of the things I've noticed when people have a really strong Uranus imprint in their chart is sometimes they'll try to go ahead and attain positions of authority and leadership in spaces that they're not welcome in spaces that they're not invited in, right? Because there's something about Uranus where he wants to defy the boundaries. He wants to defy authority. He wants to overcome the limitations that of like gender and sex and race. And this is also one of the things I think about when it comes to Saturn. I think Saturn, him being the ruler of Aquarius traditionally, also I think Saturn, there's a quality of Saturn that also, or Saturnian people that also want to defy authority or challenge authority or become an authority figure, or that also want to kind of defy the rules and the regulations that we're ascribed to or that, the person is subject to that begin in Capricorn. So it's really interesting because Saturn, he makes the rules in Capricorn and then he breaks them in the sign of Aquarius. Like the rules that he went ahead and made and like, yeah, the rules, the limitations, the structures that he builds in the sign of Capricorn, he actually goes and throws away those structures and he defies them and he deconstructs them and he overcomes them and breaks them down in the sign of Aquarius. So it's really interesting. Like Saturn has this function of not only being a planet that creates, structure and rules and regulations and who's very bossy and authoritative, but he also rebels against those very structures and those rules and those regulations and even those authority structures that he creates. It's so interesting. So the reason why I'm talking about this is because we're talking about Uranus going back into Taurus and kind of like this idea that, in some ways the fixed signs Uranus has reminded them that they need a certain amount of autonomy, a certain amount of freedom, a certain amount of power and agency in their life. And that's what I really feel like the fixed signs are being reminded of with Uranus and Taurus. It's reminding them that they have to hold true to their values. They have to hold others accountable, that they need, if anybody or anything is bringing chaos, instability, a lack of safety or security in their life, then the fixed signs right now, with Uranus going back in Taurus, they're going to feel like holding those people accountable and trying to create stability. But one of the things I think it's important for fixed signs to understand with Uranus wrapping up in Taurus is You cannot create stability and structure and safety and security with things that are with people or things or places or jobs or whatever that are not safe or secure or stable. Like you may be trying to, you're trying to go ahead and add something that is like, or you're trying to even use something or add something to your foundation that is like chaotic and not safe, or that isn't like aligned with your values, or that is unstable inherently. And you're trying to put that in your foundation and you're expecting for it to stabilize, but it's not going to work. That's not how it's going to work. And so one of the things I think it's really important for fixed signs to understand with Uranus being in Taurus for the next few months is kind of like, the things that don't bring safety and security, the things that intentionally bring chaos, the things that intentionally, cause stress and anxiety, they have to move away from those things, especially those relationships, because it's like it's not going to change, it's not going to evolve, it's just not. It should have already, it had plenty of time to, right? And it's like we're expecting something to be something that it's not, period. And I think it's like, Uranus and Taurus is going to remind us of the things that are unsafe or unsecure that we're still attached to, because Taurus is one of the signs of attachment, and Taurus does not know when to let ish go. This is true of all the fixed signs. Aquarius, Scorpio, Leo, Taurus, especially people that have a moon or a Venus there, they do, or rising, they just don't know when to let go of things. They don't know when to accept that something needs to evolve or something needs to change. And they don't know sometimes how to release something that they've taken into their foundation, or that they've attached themselves to, or that they have decided is going to be a fixed thing in their life, right? Like I always think of fixed signs as holding and grabbing and like this, like they keep things close to them. And the fixed signs always get challenged, especially when they're going through a Uranus transit. So those of you that have Uranus and Scorpio, you've been going through your Uranus opposition for the last, 6, 7 years with Uranus and Taurus. Um, the Uranus and Scorpio generation, they don't know how to let go. For those of you, because you guys are going through your Uranus opposition right now, or you're finishing your Uranus opposition. The Uranus and Scorpio generation simply does not know when to let go of things that are emotionally traumatic or things that they're emotionally attached to, because they have Uranus and Scorpio, right? And Uranus and Scorpio has a lot to do with with connections or relationships or experiences that are emotionally volatile and emotionally toxic, and where there's like built up resentment, there's built up anger, there's built up betrayal, there's built up mistrust. And what Uranus and Taurus has been trying to show the Uranus and Scorpio people, okay, or the fixed signs in general over the last 6, 7 years, is to not be too emotionally invested or to not get emotionally attached to things that are unstable or unsafe, period. It sounds simple, but you know sometimes I think this is what I've noticed with the Uranus and Scorpio folks. I think you guys like emotional traumatic experiences in relationships. I think you guys like things that are in secret. I think you guys like a little bit of deception, a little bit of mistrust. I think you guys like things to be emotionally chaotic. Because why? You haven't done the inner healing work. You haven't done the shadow work. You haven't really cleared out your own toxic emotional patterns and projections. You really haven't worked on your inner self. Okay. And so this is why I've noticed a lot of the Uranus and Scorpio folks, they find comfort and security in emotionally traumatic or emotionally unstable situations and relationships. Period. Let me go get my tea real quick while you guys digest that. Okay. I'll be right back. You guys go sit on that real quick. Let me make my tea. Let me make my tea real quick. And then I'll keep spilling tea. We're gonna do green tea and we're gonna do ginger. I don't have a teapot today. All I got is a cup of tea. Just had to go get my tea really quick. Also, are people chatting? I can't see the chat. Give me like little likes and stuff if you guys are chatting. I can't see the chat. It just stopped. Hold on, let me pull up I'm gonna pull up Oh, not the dead iPad. Are you guys chatting? Are people saying things? I can't see anything. Let me plug this in. Hold on. Under my skin, where you are. Hold on, let me plug this in. The chat stopped working. Oh, you guys are okay. People are chatting. Okay, hold on. Give me a second. Let me plug this in real fast. What am I gonna do? Unplug my TV? Yes. I think I'm unplugging the TV. It'll just have to reset itself. Okay, let me plug in my iPad really quick so I can see what you guys are saying. So yeah, with Uranus and Taurus, I think Uranus and Taurus is gonna be for the fixed signs, Scorpio, Taurus, Aquarius, Leo, especially if you have your moon, your Venus there, or your rising. I think Uranus and Taurus is bringing back a lot of unresolved issues for fixed signs, especially those of you that are going through Uranus opposition. Hold on. Okay, it's alive. It's alive. Let's go ahead and hop on the Soul Sages live. There we go. Cool. All right. I'm in the chat. Y'all can't talk about me behind my back no more. Just kidding. There we go. All right, cool. All right, I could see people chatting now, I think, if you guys are chatting. Wait. Oh, thank you for buying a badge, my love. I appreciate you. Okay, there we go. Okay, perfect. You guys are laughing. Okay, cool. We're back in the chat. Back in the chat. We're back in the chat. Okay, cool. So yeah, mutable signs. Okay, real quick. I want to talk to my mutable signs really quick. Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sag, especially if you're a big three there, okay? I need to remind you guys of something. I need to remind you guys that not only are the eclipses and the nodes going through Pisces and Virgo, we also have Saturn who's also in Pisces, who just went direct, and Neptune also just went direct in Pisces. Well, not just, but in the last 3 weeks, okay, 2, 3 weeks. So for mutable signs, Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sag, I want you to kind of understand that this period has a lot to do with karmic things coming into your life and karmic things exiting your life, and also you being uncomfortably pushed forward in ways that are maybe sad or difficult or hard. And whenever, right, when Saturn is transiting a mutable sign, the your life is going to become a little bit more strenuous, a little bit more difficult. Things are going to get a little bit harder if Saturn is transiting a mutable sign and you're a mutable person. Okay? So, right next year or this upcoming year, 2026, Saturn's going to go into Aries. And Saturn in Aries is going to be about the cardinal signs are going to be under Saturn's gaze. So Saturn is going to be transiting Aries, opposing Libra. So Libras are really going to be really going to be feeling, your Libra placements are really going to be feeling Saturn in Aries. And Saturn's also going to be squaring Capricorn and Cancer, right? So next year, it's the cardinal signs and the cardinal people that are going to start to have to deal with Saturn's karma, Saturn's gaze, Saturn's hardship, Saturn's difficulties, but also Saturn's maturity. Saturn, right? Because one of the things that Saturn does is he matures us. He has us grow up. He has us, be more disciplined or self-controlled. He has us, claim our boundaries. So it's not all bad, but the thing to keep in mind is that it is a little difficult. It is a little hard. Lucy said, Jesus, do I get a break? Cancer rising, Pisces sun, Sag moon. Well, the beautiful thing for Cancer rising is Saturn is transiting the 10th house, which is great because depending on your chart and your rising, right? Not all cardinal signs are going to be having the same Saturn experience. Cancer rising is having a 10th house Saturn, and Saturn loves a 10th. So, with Saturn transiting the 10th for Cancer rising, they're going to have a little bit more of a beneficial Saturn experience because Saturn in the 10th house he that's kind of where he thrives and where he does really well. Saturn really enjoys the 10th. That's more about career prominence and him kind of giving you your flowers when it comes to career and you kind of aligning with a higher sense of purpose or a higher sense of duty, right? But for Capricorn rising, Cancer or Saturn is going into their fourth house, well, which is home and family. And Saturn transiting the fourth is a lot more difficult than Saturn transiting the 10th because the fourth house, when Saturn transits the fourth, that's when we tend to experience the loss of a family member. It doesn't have to be bad though, but in some ways, there's going to be some kind of struggle, suffering, constriction, delays around family, around the home, around ancestry. And I also want you guys to think about this. Saturn, if we think about the fourth house as being Cancer energy, right? Saturn goes into his detriment in Cancer. So, because he's weak in the sign of Cancer, we can also kind of connect the dots and say that Saturn transiting the fourth is not going to be a fun or a joyful experience because Saturn in Cancer and Saturn in the fourth has a lot to do with struggles and hardship and difficulty and even death or endings that the family has to experience, that mom and dad are going to have to go through, the ancestors. So a lot of times, so for Capricorn rising, Saturn going through the fourth in Aries starting next year. Well, it started this year. Saturn dipped his toes into Aries. He's back into Pisces. He's direct now. He's going to go back into Aries in March. Um, that can be the passing of a grandparent, Saturn going through the fourth. But it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be bad though, because sometimes Saturn in the fourth is actually the purchasing of property or the purchasing of a home or the acquisition of real estate. Or it could even be about an inheritance. Someone in the family passes away and then we inherit property and real estate, right? Or it could also be about getting a new car and things like this, right? Saturn going through the fourth. So it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's not always going to be a bad thing. It could be a good thing as well. Same thing with Jupiter transits. This is another thing that's really important. Um, Jupiter transits are not always good. Sometimes Jupiter transits are challenging, or there can be some really tough things that we go through. For instance, I know let me think, hold on. Yeah, this makes sense. I know a few Sag risings who've been dealing with people passing away in their family, or they've been going through some hard, difficult things. I literally just did a reading for one of my clients who's a Sag rising who had um, a stepfather pass away. And this is because Sag rising has Jupiter transiting their eighth house in Cancer. So Jupiter transits, especially through the eighth house or the fourth house or the 12th house, can have a lot to do also with the passing of a family member, like and someone that could have been, um, wise, someone that could have been a caretaker, someone that could have been a nurturer. I'm just thinking about Jupiter and Cancer, or someone that could have been a provider, a supporter, or even a grandparent, a grandmother, or even a woman in the family because it's Cancer, Jupiter and Cancer, right? Cancer is a feminine energy, it's a moon energy. It's the moon and it's females. So like that, right? So not all Jupiter transits are good. Some of them are very challenging. Some of them can be difficult, especially if Jupiter is transiting a difficult house, right? Also, this is one of the things that happens when Jupiter transits the seventh. A lot of times, a seventh house Jupiter transit could be about marriage and partnership. So, Aquarius rising next year, Jupiter is going to be going to your guys' seventh house in Leo, and that can be about, a new partnership or new marriage. But guess what? Jupiter transits can also cause divorce and separation. Now, Jupiter going through the seventh or Jupiter going through the eighth can also cause divorce or separation. And yeah, and also legal issues, legal problems. Jupiter can be a challenging Jupiter transit could be about having to go to court or or dealing with some kind of legal issue as well, right? So it's not all bad planets or bad transits are going to be bad, and not all good positive planets or transits are going to be good. That's just something we got to keep in mind. It really we everything needs to be looked at in a transit chart, right? So everything needs to be looked at in a transit chart. So Lucy said that when Jupiter was in Libra, That's when her mom passed away, and that was in 2018, and that's when Jupiter was transiting her fourth. So yeah, that's an example right there, right? So okay, all right. So getting back to what I was saying, mutable signs. Um, things have been feeling a little bit harder and difficult, and also we've been in a full moon in Gemini cycle that was squaring the nodes exactly. So this is where, this full moon cycle over the last few weeks has felt a little kind of chaotic or a little erratic. Also, there's been a few violent things that have happened over the last few weeks. We saw them most extremely the last 2 or 3 days, and this is because Mars was at 29 degrees Sag. Mars was going through the last degrees of Sag over the last few days, and Mars was transiting Sagittarius as well with the sun. So when the sun and Mars are in the same sign, that tends to be when we get like violence. Um, I think it was in Australia where there was a I think there was like gun violence. There was like a mass shooting in Australia. Yeah, the Bondi Beach shooting that I'm looking at here. Okay. Yeah, there was a shooting on December 14th, or was it the 13th or 14th? I don't know. It was like either yesterday or the day before yesterday. And it was a Hanukkah celebration. Okay, so I just want to first and foremost say, um, sending out condolences to everybody, that was impacted by this. I think we're all emotionally and psychologically impacted by things like this. Whether we realize it or not, we're all impacted by this, right? Some people are directly impacted, but we are all collectively impacted when violent things like this happen. But one of the things I want to point out about this is the Mars in Sagittarius and Saturn in Pisces square, the Saturn Mars square that we were dealing with all last week, and how Mars in Sag has a lot to do with violence, Mars against people for their beliefs or religion, Sagittarius. So Sag is the sign of belief and religion. Mars is the planet of violence. And Mars was squaring Neptune and Saturn in Pisces, and Pisces rules what? The ocean. Pisces is connected to the beaches, right? And Pisces is also a sign ruled by Jupiter. Um, but that square between Pisces and Sag has a lot to do with misunderstanding around beliefs or judgment around beliefs. So people also Mars and Saturn are planets that take things to an extreme. They're extreme energies. Saturn and Mars are extreme. So Mars, when he feels very passionate about things, or when he feels very inspired and motivated by things, sometimes that the negative vibration of Mars or the negative manifestation of that can be about going to war or being violent or attacking something based on those passions, based on those desires, based on those beliefs. Mars and Sagittarius. Sagittarius is beliefs, right? Mars is about going on the attack, going to war, fighting for something, or even being violent associated with beliefs, Mars and Sagittarius. But that square between Saturn and Mars, right? And also, if we think about it, um, Jupiter was in the second place away from the full moon in Gemini, and Jupiter's in Cancer, another water sign. So there's a lot of like emotional sensitivity right now, a lot of people feeling hyper emotional around their beliefs. And sometimes, that hyper emotionality around beliefs can be about prejudice, it could be about anger, it can be about hatred, right? Mars and Saturn are planets that hate things. So, you will rarely see Jupiter and Venus energy saying they hate things. But Saturn and Mars can be very spiteful, can be very hateful, and also, they have a tendency to project for sure. Saturn and Mars are planets that project their own issues onto the outside world, onto others, onto strangers, right? So this is like when we're feeling angry or mad, we go out in the world and we attack strangers and things like this, right? So, yeah, that was the 29-degree Mars in Sag, and that was Mars in the last degrees of Sag squaring Neptune and squaring Saturn in Pisces. Um, you know, so that's one of the things to keep in mind, my loves. When we have late degree Mars transits, Mars going into the last degrees of a sign, that's when we can get violent things that happen. Or when Mars and Saturn are at odds with each other. When Mars is opposing Saturn or squaring Saturn is also when we can get like violent things. It really also Mars Uranus is another one. Mars Uranus can cause violence. And also Mars Pluto. Whenever Mars and Pluto are in a square in opposition in transit, whenever Mars and Uranus are in a conjunction, square in opposition in transit, that tends to be when we get like violent events or extreme violent events or even like mass group violent events and stuff like that. Someone said the shooters at Bondi were father and son. Yeah, that's really messed up. That's really sad. So oh yeah, so also I was looking at I did take a look at so someone said it here. Hold on, where was it at? Hold on. Rob Rainier. Yeah, Rob Rainier and his wife. Okay. So Rob Rainier, okay, and his wife were killed by their son yesterday. So I don't know if you guys seen this story, but it's been everywhere. Rob Rainier, guess what? He was born on a full moon. He's a Pisces sun, Virgo moon. And the nodes are squaring him. Exactly. So Rob Rainier, hold on. He is we don't know his rising, but he's a Pisces sun and a Virgo moon. And that's in the nodes are going over his sun and his moon like exactly right now. Hold on. Let me look at his chart. Yeah, he has 13-degree Virgo moon and 13-degree Pisces sun, I believe. Hold on. 15-degree Pisces sun. So the nodes are literally going over his sun and his moon. In the full moon in Gemini that we just had was squaring Robert near sun and moon. Exactly. But also, Rob Rainier has the fifth house away from the fifth house away from Pisces is Cancer. The fifth house is what? Children. And Jupiter just went retrograde in his fifth house in Cancer. So I believe that what happened with Robert Rainier, and if it was his son, this has a lot to do with Uranus also. So I just noticed this. Robert Rainier has Sun, Moon, both squaring Uranus and Gemini. So the full moon in Gemini that we just had, not just had, but we had like a week and a half ago now, almost 2 weeks ago, actually happened on his Uranus in Gemini. Um, and Uranus can bring chaos, you know. But I'm thinking about that Jupiter in Cancer in the fifth house away from his sun in Pisces, and I'm thinking about, if it was his child, that Jupiter retrograde that just happened, it really does seem to be around, Pisces Virgo things with their children, unhealthy, like toxic relationships. I was reading something about his child has also been dealing with like addiction, or that, Rob and his wife were fed up with his kid at this point or something like that. And so there was something about an argument or a fight that they got into. And we see that a lot with Mars and Sag. So when Mars is transiting Sagittarius, tends to be a lot of arguments and fights that can happen. Um, Especially around beliefs. People are just feeling more, Mars in a fire sign. When Mars is in a fire sign, right? Mars is more prone to anger, rage, fighting, arguments, disagreements. And when Mars is in Sag, it's going to be around our beliefs or our opinions or our ideas. But as of this week, we have Mars in Capricorn. So Mars is in a very restrained position. He exalts in the sign of Capricorn. So I think Mars and Capricorn now the gaze of Mars is turned towards the cardinal signs: Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, and Libra. So if you are Capricorn, Cancer, and Aries or Libra, you have those in your big three. You want to be mindful of the next 2 months, starting today with Mars and Capricorn, because Mars can bring some conflict, some tension. Mars can bring some, you know, arguments or fights. But Mars can also inspire or motivate you, or Mars can also re-energize you to take action and be more assertive in your life, right? In some type of way. So hold on here. I got to rejoin my own live. Someone said they tried to put him in rehab 18 times. Why is like the chat keep disappearing? I keep having to rejoin the live, my own live to take a look at the chat. Um, but yeah, so Mars can also bring passion, inspiration, desire, physical connection to the body, right? And so it's I think cardinal signs, you just want to pay attention to what Mars is doing and the house that you have Capricorn in. All of us collectively need to take a look at our Capricorn house because that's where Mars is going to be transiting over the next 2 months. Takes them about like 6 to 8 weeks to transit a sign. But yeah, Mars is in Capricorn now. So Mars in Capricorn has a lot to do with initiation or beginnings or taking action around career, around money, around resources, around the material world, around material stability. So Mars in Capricorn, that's where he's in his exaltation. So he does really well in the sign of Capricorn. And so what we're going to be seeing with Mars in Capricorn over the next you know, 6 to 8 weeks, I don't know the exact dates, is we are going to be seeing a lot of people taking action or moving in new directions when it comes to like work and career and like business and like contracts and like things like this. Business contracts, you know, maybe living situation if you're a cardinal rising, depending on where he's transiting and stuff. Since, since someone asked, since you're a moon in Capricorn, does that mean your emotions will be more heightened? Yes. Um, Mars transiting the moon can be about a sudden moving or relocation. But when Mars is in Capricorn, transiting the same sign as, let's say you have a moon in Capricorn like me, we're going to be feeling a little bit more irritable, a little bit more angry, a little bit more emotionally vocal, a little bit more emotionally assertive. I think I tend to be an emotionally assertive person because I have a Capricorn moon. But yeah, and it's in my 11th house of friends, so I'm also thinking about my Mars transiting my 11th. I'm thinking about like, you know, my friends and my social groups and how Mars can apply some pressure there as well, you know. So yeah, we just want to be mindful of Mars and Capricorn. Mars and Capricorn is really going to motivate us to be more disciplined or more self-controlled though, because Capricorn is a sign ruled by Saturn. So Mars in Capricorn is very much a business person. I noticed this when people have Mars in Capricorn, they are very, very business savvy. They're good at like making money. They tend to be pioneers or leaders in their own vocational field or their own work like career, you know, field of choice. And that's a very authoritative Mars, but it's not an aggressive Mars though. It's a very tame Mars. It's not a very emotionally unregulated Mars. One of the things I've noticed about Mars and Capricorn because of the rulership of Saturn, or yeah, because it's in Saturn sign, they tend to be very emotionally self-controlled and they tend to be very, you know, people that have Mars and Capricorn, they tend to be very diligent, very disciplined with the expression of their Mars. So they're not very like wild or chaotic people, or their Mars isn't very destructive. They tend to be able to channel their Mars energy in a very good way to where they achieve long-term goals, long-term ambitions, or they're even assertive in a way that isn't like overbearing or isn't toxic. They could be just assertive in a very silent type of way, right? So, one of the things I've noticed with Mars, those that have natal Mars and Capricorn, I'm gonna get back out and rejoin. There we go. I don't know why, but it's like it just seems like the chat, Instagram chat feature is like messed up. It looks like the chat stops even like when I have to keep rejoining because even the chat will just like stop, you know, will stop going. So weird. Anyways, so yeah, Mars and Capricorn starting this week, my loves. You want to be mindful of it. Mars is just transiting the beginning degrees of Capricorn this week, okay? Let's see. How long is Mars going to be in Capricorn? Let's see here. Da, 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 da. I got the song stuck in my head. I was gonna go look it up. Well, I'm looking it up right now. Hold on. Oh, until January 24th. So we have Mars in Capricorn until January 24th. So pretty much beginning of Aquarius season, all through Capricorn season, we're gonna have Mars in Capricorn. So we're gonna have the Sun and Mars conjoining, actually. That should be a very interesting. Sun, Mars, and Capricorn. If any Capricorn babies born this year or 2026, end of 2025, 2026, they're gonna have Mars with their sun. So these are gonna be very assertive, dominant, very authoritative, very money hungry babies coming. If anybody has a Capricorn baby, this upcoming year, 2026, end of 2025, that child is gonna have a Mars signature in their chart. Love that for you as a parent, okay? Love that for you. Also, we are going to have a Mars-Jupiter opposition. We're going to have a Mars-Venus conjunction in Capricorn. And we are going to have a Mars-Chiron square. Very interesting things we have with Mars and Capricorn. Very interesting things we have Mars and Capricorn. And we'll be talking about it as Mars transits Capricorn. We'll be talking about these things, okay? All right, my loves, let's get back to the astrology of the week. But yeah, mutable signs, big life changes, going in new directions, Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sag. Big life changes, setting new life foundations, okay? Just be patient. If things have been a little hard, a little difficult, or if you're just like unsure, you don't know what the fuck you're doing, you don't know where you're going, you don't know what is life, you don't know what is happening in your life right now, just be patient and wait until Saturn gets out of Pisces and the nodes get out of Pisces and Virgo, okay? You're going to have a lot of clarity next year when Saturn leaves Pisces and once the nodes go into Aquarius and Leo. So just be patient. Okay. Okay, let's talk about the new moon in Sag that we have this week. Let me pull up the chart. So we have a new moon in Sag coming up. Today we got the moon in Scorpio, but we have a new moon in Sag, that Scorpio moon today. Ooh, feisty. The new moon in Sag it looks like it's going to be, let me put it in my time zone. Hold on. I gotta make this time appropriate. Okay, here we go, right here. What day is it gonna be? It's looking like it's gonna be on Friday. Depends on the time zone that you're in, but we are gonna have this late degree new moon in Sag. It's at 28 degrees, it looks like. Yeah, 28 degrees. 28-degree new moon in Sag squaring Neptune. Oh, and Saturn. Venus, we have a Venus Saturn square. This new moon coming up, my loves. Um, hmm, Going to be some travel delays, I'll tell you that. Okay. There's also going to be some travel cancel plans because of weather conditions or because of like storms or floods or things like this. So if you are someone traveling internationally for the Christmas holiday, be aware of travel restrictions that are informed by politics, restrictions that are due to the weather, okay? And also like canceled plans because of relationship fallouts amongst family members, amongst lovers, things like this, okay? You need to be very aware of this. Um, Sun, Moon, square Neptune, Venus, square Saturn. This could also be about theft, scams, break-ins, loss of objects, forgetting your passport at home, forgetting something important, a key piece of information, forgetting something that you need in order to have access or entry to somewhere else. We got to be mindful of this for the starting on Friday, December 19th, and the 2 weeks that follow. So literally throughout like the Christmas, New Year's season. Okay? Um, ooh, this is looking kind of confusing. This is looking kind of messy. This new moon's looking kind of I was like hoping it would be kind of auspicious, but I don't think so. I think this new moon's gonna bring up a lot of family woundedness, my love, or my loves. We have Jupiter in Cancer retrograde, 22 degrees, squaring Chiron in Aries at 22 degrees. And Jupiter is the ruler of this new moon. And we got Jupiter in the eighth house from the new moon on the rising. We got Jupiter in Cancer in the eighth house. We have a fifth house, eighth house square. I don't know. This is looking kind of. Ooh, ooh, that felt good actually. This is looking like there's family woundedness coming up for the holidays. This is looking like we're arguing about who voted for Trump for the holidays. That's what this looks like. Also, this looks like we're there's people that are really angry or mad or at people that they love. So this could be like you're mad at your spouse, you're mad at your mom and your dad. Also, this look who's calling me? Are we good? Okay, we're good. We're back. You guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Someone said, Sigh, I'm not trying to get in the middle of that with family. Yeah, my loves. It's gonna be a little bit of a it's gonna be a little bit of a messy new moon. I hate to tell you guys. There's gonna be people that are bringing up family shit from the past. You're welcome. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is the tea. Okay, so this is the tea. This is the tea. Okay, this is the tea. About to spill some tea right now. Let me take a sip of tea, and then I'm gonna spill some tea. Okay. So this is the tea for the new moon. All right. This is the tea for the new moon. Okay. Listen, I'm gonna tell you what's happening. So the new moon, right? We put the new moon on the rising sign. In the second house, which is a family house, we have Capricorn, and that's where Mars is at. In the fourth house of family from the new moon, we have the North Node and Saturn in Pisces, and we have Neptune. And keep in mind, the new moon actually, so interesting, this is going to be a first house, fourth house square. So the new moon in Sag is squaring Neptune in the fourth, and then Venus in Sag in the rising is squaring Saturn in the fourth. So this tells us that there's a fourth house, there's fourth house themes for the new moon. Family, home, ancestry, going back to the home, right? But also with Saturn and Neptune there, this is people being delusional around what happened in the past with a family. This is people having their own version of events that they don't remember accurately or that they're recalling based on their opinions and their ideas and their beliefs or their sentiments and their feelings about the situation overall. This is people bringing shit up from the past. And also in the eighth house from the new moon, if you put Sag on the rising, the new moon on the rising, in the eighth house you get Cancer, and that's where we have Jupiter who's retrograde, right? He doesn't retrograde. So this is telling me if there's family members or people that owe us money, we're bringing that shit up at the at Christmas dinner. Okay. If there's people that have wronged us or that have deceived us or that just are pretending like shit's okay And like, no, we're not happy. We're not okay. We're like things are. We need to talk about it. We need to air it out. We need to bring this shit into the light. We need to figure this out. That shit is coming out. We're bringing it up. We got to because Jupiter's in the eighth house in Cancer, and because Saturn in the North Node are in the fourth house from the new moon and the rising, and it's like, and also Saturn square Venus. You need to appreciate me. You need to value me. I did this for you and you're not giving anything back. Like, I feel rejected. I feel like there's a lack of boundaries. I feel like you're not really showing up for me. Saturn square Venus. I feel like, it's like we need to commit. We need a contract. We need a ring. We need something. The Saturn Venus square. Okay. What is going on? Interesting. So I want you guys to be mindful of this, okay? Um, with the new moon coming up this week. I think that this is going to be a very beneficial new moon, though, for some people. I think this is going to be a beneficial new moon for fire signs and air signs mainly. But I think water signs and earth signs are having to go through some kind of family drama. I think no. I even think fire signs. I think there's like Venus square Saturn, man. The new moon square Neptune. It just feels like things are confusing and things are unsure and things are, you know, um, maybe even like I don't know, Venus square Saturn. I'm also kind of getting like maybe there's this energy of like grief or sadness, or there's this energy of acceptance around things that are not coming with us into 2026. And there's also this very strong awareness that, we can't change their mind, we can't change their beliefs, we can't change the past, we can't change who they are, we can't help them or save them, okay? We can't go back to the past and try to fix things that are already set in stone, that have already happened. And it's not your work. And this is so important. I just really got to say this. With Saturn in the fourth and Jupiter in the eighth for this upcoming new moon, it's Jupiter in Cancer in the eighth house, Saturn in the North Node, and Pisces in the fourth. It's not your work to save your family. It's not your work to try to get them to see you, to honor you, to accept your truth, to hear your truth. It's not your work to try to get them to understand what your experience was in the past compared to their experience, because they're in a place of pride, they're in a place of ignorance, they're in a place of ego, okay? So they don't want to accept. They don't want to see. They don't want to empathize. They're not looking to understand you, your position, your experience, what you went through. There's something about false recollection of the past. And also, I'm getting a download around people trying to erase our version of events and our experience. So this is kind of like you were abused as a child, and mom and dad are like, nope, that didn't happen. The family's like, nope, that didn't happen. Mm-mm. What are you talking about? You had a great childhood. Your childhood was wonderful. Look at all these things that we did for you. You had, a roof over your head. You had food on the table. Like, it wasn't that bad. But you're like, what about my experience? What about what I went through? But they're like not going to honor that or accept that, or they're not going to be willing to see your version of events and what you went through. I got to remind you guys, Saturn and Neptune are delusional, especially in Pisces. And many times when you challenge, we try to expose truth or reveal truth, or you challenge someone's version of events in some type of way, right? If they have emotionally invested, because their ego and their psyche is protecting them from being a bad person, if they're emotionally invested in their delusion, okay, of events, because they have to make themselves the victim or make themselves the good guy, okay? You're not going to be able to find any kind of reconciliation. You're not going to be able to reason with these folks because their recollection of events is fantastical, is delusional because they do not want to be honest with themselves. Our mind is so tricky. We could be so good at lying to ourselves that we actually convince ourselves of a lie and that we actually erase the true actual memory of events and we replace it with some fucking delusional fantasy about some shit that didn't even happen. This is how good we are at gaslighting ourselves. This is how good the human mind is at gaslighting itself, and this is how fragile the human ego is sometimes at protecting itself. It is, it can get to the point where it erases the truth of what happened and it totally recreates this fantastical delusional these fantastical delusional memories of things that are not even accurate to what happened. This is the energy of this new moon. Sun, Moon in Sag squaring Neptune in Pisces. Venus in Sag squaring Saturn in Pisces. Mercury. Oh, wait a minute. Wait, we got one more. We got one more square between Sag and Pisces that I just noticed. Mercury in Sag at 10 degrees Sag squaring the node, squaring the North Node in Pisces. So this tension between Sag and Pisces for the new moon is going to be very, very much, very, very much, very, very prevalent, very much in the air. Okay. And we need to be very aware of this energy of people being people lying, people being deceitful or dishonest, or even people speaking uncomfortable truths. This could be you. You may have an uncomfortable truth that you got to speak for the holidays. And then people totally diminishing it, shutting it down, not accepting it, rejecting your truth. Someone said published literature. Okay, we got a little story time in the chat. Oh, let me go back. Someone said published literature is insane fan fiction. Okay, anyways. Um, Thank you for sharing though. That was funny. All right. Okay. There's a lot of mutable. This is like very mutable heavy. This is a very mutable heavy new moon. So one of the things I will say is things may be a little confusing or a little foggy. Um, Mercury squaring the nodes tells us that there's very important decisions or choices that people are making for this new moon that are more self-oriented or more selfish. Kind of like similar to like the full moon in Gemini, but the full moon in Gemini was more about like closure and completion and endings, where this new moon in Sag is going to be more about choices or decisions that are about like expansion and growth or that are about like agency or taking ownership of our life in some type of way. So it's these are choices that are more about beginning something or starting something new. So if you've been kind of feeling hesitant about like taking a big leap of faith or making a change or starting something new, this new moon in Sag is going to invite that energy with Mercury squaring the nodes of like, oh, let's move forward. Like let's go ahead and start or begin this thing, okay? But what I will say is this new moon is gonna bring up a lot of emotional stuff for a lot of people. It's gonna bring up like really intense emotions that we've been holding on to, and it's going to try to bring things out into the open. I always think of Sagittarius as a sign that's very much things are just out in the open and things are just let's go ahead and take a look at it for what it is. Let's talk about it for what it is. Let's like bring it out into the open. And I really do think that there's going to be people bringing things out into the open or bringing things, bringing truths out or like asking for clarity around things, getting clarity around things. Um, but it's going to be about resolving stuff from the past and kind of like releasing stuff from the past that we've been kind of like emotionally invested in or that we've been emotionally holding on to that we don't really need anymore or that there's no there's no reason to carry this anymore. Like we have to just move forward. We have to like let it go and move forward. So, okay. Um, Sagittarius is a sign of, our beliefs and our morals and our ethics. Sagittarius is also one of the signs of like celebration and fun. And so, this idea of the Christmas spirit and jolly old Saint Nicholas and, gift giving, benevolence, Sagittarius, Jupiter, benevolence, gift giving, right? Is all Sagittarius energy. It's all Sag, but we got to remember for this particular new moon, Jupiter, who is retrograde, who he just went retrograde. He's at 22 degrees, and he's in the eighth house away from the new moon, right? The sign of Cancer does not have a good relationship with the sign of Sagittarius because they're in aversion to each other. So what that means is that the sign of Sagittarius actually is in a quincunx to Cancer and also Taurus. So Taurus is the sixth house away from Sagittarius. If you put Sagittarius on the rising or on the ascendant, and then Cancer is the eighth house away from Sagittarius. So this tells us that Cancer, Jupiter in Cancer, is in aversion to the new moon. It's like not looking or not aspecting the new moon in a healthy or a good way, right? So yeah, there's gonna be a lot of woundedness that comes up. Also, Jupiter squaring Chiron. There's gonna be some kind of like hurt feelings from the past, hurt feelings that that are rooted in family ancestry that are going to be coming up. For the purpose of healing, though, I think this is a very healing new moon as well. I think this is a very creative new moon. I think this is a very spiritual, psychic, intuitive new moon. I think this is a new moon where there's going to be absolute endings as well, where people are just like, no, this is done, especially around the realm of relationships because of the Venus Saturn square that's going to be for the part of the new moon feature. Um, but yeah, we'll talk more about this on Friday. I'll be, oh, I'm travel. Yeah, I'll be back in California on Friday. So Friday morning, we'll do a new moon overview where I'll talk a little bit more about the new moon, okay? Just kind of give you guys a little sample of it today. All right. But let's go. We're an hour in, so let's talk about the astrology of the week ahead. Let's do the day by day play. Let's, take a look at the moon and everything. But I'm gonna go into more detail. Just gave you guys a little synopsis or a little taster of what the new moon in Sag is gonna be about. But we'll go into more deets on Friday, okay? On Friday, on new moon day. All right. So we got the moon in Scorpio today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. There's my neighbor. He's so cool. I like my neighbor. He's awesome. Um, so we got the moon in Scorpio. When did the moon go into Scorpio? Oh, the moon went to Scorpio last night. Uh, yes. So we have the moon in Scorpio, and the moon in Scorpio is very important uh today and tomorrow because Mars just went into a new sign. So the ruler of Scorpio is Mars, and Mars has just ingressed into Capricorn. Okay. So this tells us that the moon in Scorpio is going to be about, because Mars just entered a new sign, and also moon and Mars are sextiling each other by sign. It's going to be about kind of like moving forward in new ways, setting new foundations, beginning something new, starting something new. This could also be about a new routine, a new pattern, a new habit, a new job, a new friend, a new lover, a new male lover coming into your life. But there's something about forging forward and moving in new directions with the moon in Scorpio today, tomorrow, and Wednesday because Mars just ingressed into Capricorn. So this seems to be about initiation or beginnings. But the other thing I want you guys to understand about the moon in Scorpio is that this is the sixth house away from our full moon in Gemini. And this is about kind of karmic closure or karmic reckoning associated with the full moon that we just had. So, one of the things I want you guys to pay attention to, or want you guys to think about, is we had a murder happened with like a famous person um yesterday, last night, as the moon went into Scorpio. Um, and there's like, because it's a sixth house thing, seems to be about, sixth house is like open enemies, but sixth house is also about karmic retribution or karmic closure. There seems to be this energy of like faded karmic events happening over the next 3 days as the moon is transiting Scorpio, because it's closing out our full moon cycle that was aspecting the nodes, and because it's a sixth house, 12th house energy. Okay. So the moon in Scorpio over the next few days, we can feel a lot of really intense, erratic emotion. The moon in Scorpio could bring up things around resentment or betrayal or mistrust. The moon in Scorpio can also push us towards being a little bit more curious or a little bit more inquisitive or investigative around things in our life. So, the moon in Scorpio can push us to ask those hard hitting questions, to be a little bit more deep or to be a little bit more vulnerable with those that are, close to us, and things like this. So, those are all things to kind of like consider. Um, in general, themes around coworkers, jobs, our health, our wellness, our routines can be a theme over the next few days with the moon in Scorpio, since is the sixth house away from our full moon in Gemini. But yeah, okay. So let me take a look. So we had moon square Pluto this morning. The moon is moving away from a square with Pluto right now. Yeah. So moon square Pluto is about the, you know, emotional reckoning or emotional excavation in some type of way, or even like emotional volatility. So we just want to be mindful of moon square Pluto today. There could be some very intense emotions that are stirred up today or that are triggered today. And yeah, because it's the Pluto in Aquarius squaring the moon in Scorpio. I also think this has a lot to do with just kind of like just grieving things or just accepting that there's certain things that are ending or that we're moving away from, and that's just the way it is. That's just where we're at right now, timeline wise. Okay. Um, all right, let me see. Is the moon going to aspect anything important? So we have Moon in Scorpio today. Now I'm looking at Tuesday. Let's go to Tuesday. 6 hours. Trying to use. Okay. Yeah, Tuesday. So tomorrow evening, the Moon in Scorpio is going to form a trine with Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune. So we can really see some positive, beneficial stuff with this moon transit tomorrow evening. I wouldn't be surprised if some people get some like good positive news with Moon trine Jupiter and Moon trine Saturn. There can be some serious emotional conversations that people need to have though, or that we need, or even like things that we got to figure out emotionally. Like where we're invested emotionally, we're investing our time, our energy, our resources, and stuff like this. But also, what's interesting about Tuesday night going into Wednesday is the moon forms an opposition with Uranus. So the moon forms this beautiful grand trine with Saturn, Neptune, and Jupiter, but then the moon opposes Uranus by like around midnight Tuesday going into Wednesday. So, there could be some insomnia, but we want to be mindful of tripping, accidents, mechanical devices malfunctioning or not working, so cars breaking down, things like that, with the moon opposite Uranus on Tuesday. Okay. This is going to be Tuesday morning. Oh, I'm sorry. No, midnight Tuesday going into Wednesday morning. All right. I need more. Let me drink my tea. Hold on. My mind is like, feeling very ADD right now. Okay. Are people talking? Let me rejoin the chat. Okay, hold on. Let me get back on here. Someone said hydration break. Thank you for buying a badge, my love. I appreciate you. Okay, cool. Okay, we're back. So yeah, this is also the moon in Scorpio is kind of important for fixed signs. Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, Scorpio. Um, the moon in Scorpio transit over the next 3 days. Someone said they love the pink lights. Oh, thank you. I love them too. It's like this is like one of my favorite colors, especially when it comes to lighting. Um, there can be some really intense emotional stuff that gets drudged up, especially if you're a fixed sign with the moon in Scorpio over the next like 3 days. Another download that I got, I don't know where this is coming from, but I was getting something around big expenditures or big purchases. So I don't know if this is like, buying a house or buying a car or like getting money together or getting funding together in order to do like to make like purchasing a big trip. Or even this could be even like making big purchases because of the Christmas holiday coming up, like gift giving and things like this. There's something about big expenses or big purchases that I have coming up as well. One of the things I will say though is Tuesday night going into Wednesday morning, we may be feeling a little emotionally erratic, or we may be feeling a little kind of restless or like sleepless. There may be a little bit of sleeplessness in the air because of the moon Uranus opposition. Okay. I want you guys to be a little mindful of that. Um, but the moon in Scorpio transit is also kind of pushing us to initiate or begin something or start something. So I don't know. I kind of feel like maybe there's like a new lifestyle, new routines. I don't know. There's some kind of something new entering or like a new direction that we're going in with because the moon in Scorpio is responding to Mars, who just ingressed into Capricorn. So this could also be about new business deals, new money, new contracts, new money making ventures, a new job, like I was saying when I first started talking about the moon in Scorpio transit. Okay. So there's that. And then things get interesting on Wednesday. Because then on Wednesday, the moon goes into Sagittarius after our moon Uranus opposition. Um, Moon trine Neptune, Moon trine Saturn. I don't know. This could also be a season where people are just. I'm thinking about Moon in Scorpio, last degrees, trine Neptune and Saturn, where people just need help, my loves. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I feel like just this is a season this week. I feel like just people are in need. People need help. People are struggling, So with the North Node, Saturn and Pisces and Jupiter and Cancer, we just may need to be a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more compassionate, a little bit more understanding, a little bit more willing, a little bit more able, a little bit more giving this holiday because I'm just looking at this energy. I don't know, it just feels like people are really struggling in a lot of different ways, whether it be they're struggling financially, they're struggling spiritually, emotionally, they're struggling just energy wise, maybe low vibe, low energy. People are feeling like depressed, sad, things like this. And so we really need to lean on each other, okay? Extra heavy, especially I feel like this week, next week. I don't know. I just think that this new moon is going to be really emotionally challenging for a lot of people, okay? All right. So moon goes into Sag, and then we're in our new moon energy starting Wednesday. Typically, Moon and Sag energy tends to be very fun and very exciting, and I think it will be for a lot of people. It is this energy of that is like very celebratory and very expansive, and many people are traveling, going to visit their family, going to visit lovers, going to visit others or whatever, right, for the holidays. But I also want you guys to be mindful of this like Jupiter in the eighth house away from the new moon and the Moon in Sag transit with Jupiter in Cancer, who just went retrograde. Because there can be things that come up around, a lack of resources when it comes to certain things that we want to do. So this can be like, oh yeah, typically I travel for the holidays, but I'm broke and I don't have money, right? This can be like, oh, typically, I go and visit this person or that person, but they're going through things, and so I'm not going to be visiting that person or this person, and we're going to be pivoting and doing something else or doing something different. I was kind of talking about that last week as well, like people doing something different this holidays that they haven't done before, or kind of breaking away from the traditional plans for this holiday season. So there's something about this holiday season that is kind of like, you know, you're not going to be doing what you usually do. You're not going to be visiting the people that you usually visit. There's something kind of like exceptional or different or unique about this holiday season, okay? But we're really going to be feeling this new energy with the moon going into Sagittarius. But I don't know, Jupiter just went retrograde. So it kind of feels like there's also this awareness that things are like ending or that things are being purged or that we're going through some kind of death and rebirth collectively. There's like a transitionary energy that we're going through. I'm just thinking about Jupiter in the eighth house. I'm thinking about eighth house energy for this new moon cycle coming up. And I'm thinking about this moon in Sag, Jupiter in Cancer retrograde at 22 degrees. And I don't know, it just kind of feels like we want to expand and grow and move forward, but there's still stuff from the past. There's still stuff that we're dealing with that we got to like figure out, that we got to purge, that we got to work through, that we got to process, that we got to digest, that we got to transmute or transform in some type of way. So it kind of feels like, yeah, there's still some trauma, there's still some eighth house energy, there's still some shit from our ancestry, from our family, from our past that we got to like work through. And I think the moon in Sagittarius, on Wednesday, starting Wednesday, before our new moon that's going to be on Friday, is kind of opening up that door. It's kind of making us very aware of this. Okay. Um, so Wednesday, the moon goes into Sag, and then the first contact that the moon makes is with Mercury, because Mercury's in Sag. Well, actually, no. Mercury's going to sextile Pluto, but Mercury, the first, you know, planetary contact it's going to make with the original seven planets is going to be Mercury. So we have a Moon Mercury conjunction on Wednesday. And yeah, it is Wednesday night, maybe Thursday morning. Wednesday night, Thursday morning, Moon Mercury come together. Yeah. Moon Mercury is going to have us feeling very mentally stimulated, very chatty. Oh, that's really interesting as well because that is around the time that I am leaving to go back home. So that's really interesting. That's happening on a Moon Mercury transit. Moon Mercury tends to be really chatty, really decisive, really busy, really action oriented. I do think starting Wednesday, the energy kind of like picks up and things kind of feel very, very busy or very kind of like intense. Moon sextile Pluto is also a very intense energy. It's also a very, I don't know, Moon and Sag, sextile Pluto and Aquarius is kind of giving me a very socially inviting, a very socially stimulating. I think Moon Mercury tends to be very socially stimulating as well. So I don't know, I kind of feel like starting Wednesday when the moon goes into Sag, we're kind of a little bit more in this energy of being outside or interacting with others or just being very talkative or very busy. I just feels like there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of activity once the moon goes into Sagittarius, okay? Um, the other thing that's beginning to form in the sky as the moon goes into Sag is Venus coming into a square with Neptune and also, oh, I'm sorry, Venus coming to a square with Saturn and also Sun square Saturn. So this is another, I think, this is a very interesting thing that we have this week, all week. We had last week, we had Mars squaring Saturn, but this week it's Sun square Saturn. And Sun square Saturn, I was talking about this actually when I was doing a synastry reading yesterday. Sun and Saturn are enemy planets. They don't really like each other. So when we have Sun square Saturn, there tends to be challenges with authority figures, leaders, bosses, government problems, government issues. So let's say you're waiting for like a passport to come in the mail. Let's say you're waiting for the government to process something for you. Well, Sun square Saturn can bring delays or setbacks or challenges associated with legal processing, government processing, leaders in general, like bosses, authority figures. The Sun Saturn square can bring challenges around those things. So I want you guys to be very mindful of this kind of Saturn Sun square. It actually goes exact on tomorrow on Tuesday. Okay. But this could also be about pushing against your own limitations and challenging yourself to kind of be a little bit more structured or disciplined or to also kind of like get out of your shell in some type of way. I don't know. I think about the sun and Sag just wanting to like expand and grow and find joy and find fun and find faith. But that square to Saturn and Pisces, it feels like there's a lot of doubt or there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of inhibition, or there's even just like a lot of grief and a lot of sadness. So, I think to reconcile the Sun Saturn square that we're going to have for the new moon, and that we're also going to be feeling this week, I think what's important is we have to kind of overcome our own fears, our own limitations, and our own kind of like sadness, our own grief, and we got to lean into like the future, the next frontier. Like, what is the next direction? Kind of like I think Saturn square Neptune. I'm sorry. I think Saturn square the Sun for the new moon is about it's about faith over fear, and it's about expansion over limitation. Okay. Someone said, I've been hesitant on sending an email, but I've been holding out. I did subconsciously from, I think, from fear. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah. Because, like, the new moon in Sag is inviting us to expand and grow. The new moon in Sag is inviting us to be courageous, to take action, to like, go in a new direction or to like expand into a new frontier, but then it's being capped or it's being limited or it's being burdened by the square with Saturn. So it feels like Saturn in Pisces is this energy of emotional paranoia, emotional fears, this energy of like grief or sadness or even like doubt that we got to overcome in order to really honor what the new moon wants us to do or what the new moon is pushing us towards. Okay. So I just want you guys to be mindful of that. All right. But yeah, this sun Saturn square, you know, this could also be about big kind of like life foundational changes that we're making around work and career. The Sun and Saturn are planets that have a lot to do with career and work and our public image and kind of like how we show up in the world. The Sun is a planet that's very outside focused. It's very public focused. It's very who we are when we are in the outside world, right? And also who we want to be, who we're meant to become, or who we want to become, and how we want to present ourselves to the outside world. So when we're thinking about our public image or our public reputation, we're thinking about the sun because that's what the sun is connected to, right? So it seems like with Sun Saturn square, especially for a mutable sign, Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sag, if you're a mutable person, Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sag, you have those in your big three. It seems like who you've been and who you want to be and who you're becoming, they're kind of like at odds with each other. It feels like the new moon is making mutable signs very aware of the person that they're moving away from or the outdated version of themselves and the person that they're becoming or the person that they're stepping into and the person that they want to be. And there's kind of like they're in this kind of middle place right now. They're in this kind of maybe a cocoon phase or a transitionary phase around their own identity and around who they are, and they're like become their own becoming. Okay. I think we're feeling this, the mutable signs are feeling this especially, but I think collectively we're all going to be experiencing this with this new moon in Sag. All right. It's kind of like we have to grieve the old self. There's kind of like grieving the old self and making space for the new self. Okay. That's one of the things I'm kind of like getting. So, so yeah, like the moon in Sag and our new moon, the moon in Sag starts on Wednesday. Um, third Tuesday evening going to Wednesday. Moon Mercury, Wednesday night, Thursday. Hold on, let me go by hours here. Yeah, yeah. Thursday morning we have Moon Mercury. So Moon Mercury, it does seem like there's, going into the new moon, Moon Mercury is going to have us thinking about phone calls, letters, emails, truth, honest, open, truthful conversations that we need to have or that we're ready to have with the family. There's also something about planning or purchasing tickets, travel tickets, maybe train tickets, something like this on Wednesday going into Thursday. Um, Yeah. Oh, the other thing is Venus is at 22 degrees on Thursday. So as the moon is transiting Mercury, Venus goes to 22 degrees Sag, and she's coming into that square with Saturn. So, and she's also trining Chiron. So we have Venus in Sag, trine Chiron in Aries, and they're both at 20. We have a strong 22-degree thing going on starting Thursday. Jupiter's at 22, Chiron's at 22, Venus is at 22. We have a lot of 22 degrees on Thursday. This can be a very dramatic, climactic day. This can be a very tough day for some people, especially around the realm of relationships, especially around the realm of authority, anger, power, um, experiences with authority figures, things like this. Okay. It does seem like people are feeling like they need to speak their truth. They need to communicate. They need to say something. They need to talk about something. It's very important that they got to talk about. Okay. I want you guys just be aware of this energy. All right. Because then the moon's going to conjoin Venus on Friday. Friday, gotta get down on Friday. Friday morning, we have Moon Venus conjunct. Well, Venus moves past 22 degrees, thank goodness. She's gonna be at 23. But the Moon and Venus, they both form this square with Saturn on Friday. And then the sun is moving away from a square with Saturn and a square with Neptune. This is a lot of confusion. This is a lot of confusion. This is a lot of don't know where we're going, don't know what we are, don't know what we're doing. There's a lot, it seems like there's a lot of like confusion. And it seems like there's clarity that we want or security that we want that we're having a hard time getting, okay? I think the best thing to do on Friday with this new moon is to stay flexible, stay bendable, be pivotable, okay? Keep your life in pivot mode, okay? Because you may have to flex, bend, adapt, pivot or something, all right? This weekend. Someone said, so interesting, I'm taking a trip to Miami that day. Yeah, a lot of people traveling around this new moon. Yep, that's a big theme, a big theme. A lot of people traveling. But there could be some confusion. There can be some things that are amiss. There could be a little bit of unsure energy because of the squares that Sun, Moon, Venus are making to Saturn and Neptune and Pisces. Okay. This is also going to challenge us, though. I will tell you, this energy is going to challenge us to get clarity, to get truth, okay? To get some kind of, it's like we're looking for a promise, we're looking for a commitment, we're looking for information, we're looking for security, we're looking for stability, we're looking for something. There's something that is attainable that we can get that can help us work through some of this fog or some of this confusion, okay? That we're experiencing. What I also will say is there's just, it just really feels like this new moon where there is having a lot of people accept that something is over, something is done, and they're like really just excited to move forward. I really just feel like there's people that are excited to move forward. Also, the positive thing about this is there's going to be some people proposing, people getting on a knee, people also confessing love or confessing emotions or being very open with things that they have that they've been withholding that they need to like let someone know. So we're going to be seeing a lot of kind of like confessions in different type of ways. A lot of different types of confessions, emotional confessions, love confessions, honest confessions. So even if there's like, let's say there's like events that have transpired where someone's being accused of something or where someone needs to clear up their name and maybe they've been deceitful or dishonest about something. Well, guess what? We're going to be getting a confession from them. They're going to be opening up and speaking truth. So I think, there's this energy of people kind of really being vulnerable and open and really kind of like spilling their guts or spilling the beans and kind of like maybe even admitting to guilt and stuff like this. So, all right, that's gonna be in the air. Also, Sag, when we're talking about the axis of Sag and Gemini, we always got to talk about legal issues and court cases and legal battles. Very important. And also when Venus and Saturn are squaring each other. This is like, yeah, this is like it could be Venus square Saturn for the new moon could be about divorce or separation, but it can also be about like alimony or child support. I'm thinking about Jupiter in the eighth. It could be about trying to get money back that you're owed in some type of way from like a job, a corporation. Let's say you're suing someone, something like this. Okay. Um, but yes, this is definitely the energy. There may be some legal things that we got to deal with or that we got to like work through for the new moon in Sag as well. And or even this week. If you are someone that's already in the middle of a lawsuit, okay, um, you may see some movement or some progress with it this week as the moon is going through Sagittarius and the moon is hitting this like Venus, it's hitting the sun for the new moon. It's hitting this square with like Saturn, okay? So yeah, it's the squares to Saturn can be a little rough, when people have these in their chart, when they have squares to Saturn from planets, especially benefic planets like Venus and the sun and the Venus, moon, sun, or Mercury square Saturn, you really see how they struggle and they suffer with those planets and how Saturn really, causes a lot of delays or causes a lot of setbacks or causes a lot of like testing, brings a lot of testing with those planets. So we just got to keep in mind, this is kind of like testing time a little bit. The moon in Sag starting Wednesday, going to Friday, it kind of feels like we're being tested a little bit, you know? And also I want you guys to keep in mind, sorry, I'm trying to make this as positive as possible. The moon goes into Capricorn and Aquarius after our new moon. So, we go into the weekend coming out of the new moon with the moon going into Capricorn and the moon hitting Mars and then the moon's in detriment in Capricorn, right? So right after our new moon in Sag, what we get is the moon transiting Saturn ruled signs, Capricorn and Aquarius. So we're really going to be feeling this like Saturn energy. I think this is also like the energy of like holiday blues and stuff like this, you know? The holiday blues may be a thing, but also it also feels like it's interesting because I'm also getting this download around people starting a family. So interesting. I'm also getting a lot of like joy or celebration around we're starting a family or we're like gonna be living together. It's like people getting married, people starting a family, people buying a house, moving in together. There's this energy of kind of like we're the next generation. So we're starting our own family. It's like we're the next generation that's starting like that's carrying down the family legacy. So we're starting our family. We're starting the house. You're buying the house. We're like doing that. And this is also showing up. I'm getting a download around this in the realm of relationships as well. So it kind of feels like we're seeing some kind of evolution or advancement around relationships with this new moon cycle. So this can be like you guys have been on unofficial and now you make it like official, okay? Or this could be like, okay, we've been dating and now there's like an engagement or now there's a deeper form of commitment or something like this, or at least discussion around that. Okay? That's what it kind of feels like. There's just a few downloads that I'm kind of getting. What I will say though is that there is going to be people kind of having very serious conversations. Okay? Having very, very serious conversations about things and needing to make kind of very serious decisions or choices. Okay? This weekend with the moon going to Capricorn, Lordy, the stores are going to be nuts. The moon Mars together, especially on Saturday. Um, People are going to be fighting at the stores and stuff like this. So be wary of drama when you're in the outside world this upcoming weekend. Okay. People are going to be acting kind of like a fool a little bit. People are going to be a little kind of acting a little nutty. I'm just getting a very anxious, intense energy when as Mercury's coming in to square the nodes Saturday and Moon Mars conjoin Saturday morning. It just feels like people are out in the world, they're at the stores and they're just like buying shit and they're just like being competitive and it's like, it's like, like, have you seen those shows where like someone has to go, they have like 5 minutes to fill up their cart with as much shit as possible. And so they're just like running through the store and just like filling up their cart with like shit. That's what this weekend is give. That's like what came to me. That's the energy of this weekend as the moon goes into Capricorn and hits Mars. It kind of feels like it's a little bit of a erratic weekend and people trying to catch up on things. Yeah, I would do my shopping on Thursday or Friday. I wouldn't. I think if you're gonna go sh do Christmas shopping this weekend, baby, you got to prepare for it to be a battlefield. Okay, you know, love is a battlefield. Is that Pat Benatar? You know what's so funny? I um I looked at Pat Benatar's chart one time. This is such a random tangent. The Love is a Battlefield came to me because that song came to me for the weekend. So it's like shopping is a battlefield or something like this, okay? Um, but what's so funny about Pat Benatar, who's a Capricorn, it's funny how she's a Capricorn, is her Venus Mars. She has Venus Mars together in Pisces and a moon in Scorpio. So it's really and Saturn in Libra. She's the Saturn and Libra generation. Pat Benatar. Love is a battlefield. Well, that's love is a battlefield when you have Venus and Mars in a conjunction. Someone said I'm too pretty for prison, so Friday it is. Someone said we need some shopping therapy after everything we've been going through. Yeah, we do. But yeah, when people have Venus in a fire sign, Venus in a Mars world sign, Venus in Sag, or I'm sorry, Venus in a Mars world sign, Venus in Scorpio, Venus in Aries, or Venus in a fire sign like Sag, Leo, or Venus in conjunction with Mars, like Pat Benatar, love quite literally is a battlefield for them. Like love and war mutually are like mutual experiences. Like, the people that like one day they love their partner and the next day they hate their partner. Those are people that have Venus in a Mars ruled sign, Scorpio, Aries, or Venus, Mars in a conjunction, or Venus being aspected by Mars in some type of way. Like Venus opposite Mars, Venus square Mars, Venus, yeah. Like they'll be like the relationship is like beautiful and great and amazing one day, and then the next day they're just like fighting and arguing with their partner and they just like hate them. That's like a Venus Mars thing. Love is a battlefield. So what we're getting this weekend, right, is we have Venus square Saturn and we have Moon Mars together. This is gonna be it's like a volatile energy, you know, over the weekend. Also, yeah, Saturn's in Pisces, but it also I'm just thinking of like Moon Mars with Saturn in Pisces. I'm thinking about Moon in Capricorn. I'm thinking about Moon sextiling Saturn as well. And to me, this kind of the sextile energy alleviates the pressure, you know? Also, it's really funny that people would be doing a lot of shopping or spending money this weekend as the moon goes into Capricorn after the new moon in Sag, because the moon in Capricorn is a second house away from the new moon. If you put Sag on the rising and the new moon on the rising, and the second house is about what? It's about money. It's about objects. It's about buying things, right? It's about our relationship with the material world, the second house. So it's really funny that right as we're coming out of the new moon on Friday, the moon goes into the second house from itself on the weekend, and right away the download I got is people just buying stuff and people, out in the world getting gifts and things like this. But it being a very kind of like aggressive experience or it being a very kind of intense experience, because of the influence of Mars, who just went to Capricorn, and Moon Mars together. Okay. Um, we're also gonna, this is also giving the energy of people really just committing to new things and being kind of recommitting to being more disciplined or self-controlled with Moon, Mars, and Capricorn this weekend. All right. Let me see. Okay, so that is Saturday. So I'm looking at Moon, Mars together on Saturday. I'm looking at, and the sun's also forming a square at Neptune on Saturday. So the Sun Neptune square, I think we're going to be seeing some really big things with like government leaders, and we're going to be seeing some really big things around religious or spiritual leaders with the Sun coming to 29 degrees, squaring Neptune at 29 degrees. I also think we may see some information or some news around, a new sickness, a new bacteria, a new virus, a new something like this with Sun 29 degrees, squaring Neptune 29 degrees. I also do think that, what else are we gonna get? Hmm. We're gonna get more news around big corporations or big businesses laying off mass groups of people. And these are gonna be the companies that are gonna announce this are gonna be like big international businesses, or even foreign businesses that are maybe, you know, located in the States, but they're founded or based out of another country. I think what we're going to be seeing is businesses on the move or corporations on the move and big businesses closing doors and relocating. So the download I'm getting, so if you are an employee or if you work for a company, I want you to pay attention to these kind of, end of year announcements around big changes when it comes to where the business is going to be, or even the business closing or the business merging with another business or something like this. Okay, just be very mindful of this with Sun square Neptune, Sun square Saturn, and yeah. And this is like also this energy is mainly focusing on mutable signs. You want to pay attention to your Pisces and your Virgo and your, I'm sorry, your Pisces and your Sag houses. For this, especially if you're a mutable sign, if you're a Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sag, you have those in your big three. Um, you want to pay attention to this energy because I also think that there's going to be maybe certain extreme or climactic experiences that people are going to have. Um, starting this new moon and starting this weekend, where it's like, there's certain narratives or stories that have been in their life for maybe a while, and now those narratives or stories are coming to completion or coming to the end. Okay. So, especially if you are immutable, okay, I want you to be mindful of this. Okay. Be mindful of this. All right. Um, but yeah, Moon in Capricorn is responding to Saturn, who just went direct. So it does feel like with Saturn, Neptune direct, we're moving forward around things around our spirituality, things around our faith, things around our foundation, things around security and stability, things around like long-term plans, people moving forward or us taking action towards long-term plans. Okay, we're gonna be filling with this new moon, and I really do even feel this weekend and even next week as the moon is transiting Saturn ruled signs. There's this invitation to kind of like, be a little bit more structured, be a little bit more disciplined, or be a little bit more intentional around like direction and where you're going. Okay. All right, hold on. I think we have let me look at Sunday really quick. Okay, okay. Uh Sunday, we have the moon at middle degrees Capricorn, but the moon actually goes towards. Oh, the moon is going to be at, yeah, after 12 p.m. Sunday PST. We have the moon going to the last degrees of Capricorn, making a sextile to Saturn in opposition to Jupiter. So, Sunday seems to be very celebratory. Is anybody going to like a party or celebration or like a wedding or even like a funeral on Sunday? because the moon is going to be making a sextile to Saturn, and it's also going to be opposing Jupiter in Cancer. And to me, I don't know, I'm kind of feeling like, and then also we start Capricorn season on Sunday. So just keep, so sad season. It was fun. We had a good time. Thank you for the energy. We appreciate you, Jupiter. We appreciate the sun going through Sag. But we actually officially start Capricorn season on Sunday. The sun is going to transition into the sign of Capricorn, and we're going to have Sun Mars kind of like transiting together for the first week of Capricorn season. Um, and then our next full moon is going to be one in Cancer, actually. We're going to have a full moon in Cancer. Um, that's actually not going to be too bad. I'm actually looking forward to the full moon in Cancer. I think it's going to be a really good full moon because it's co-present with Jupiter. So, but what I will say on Sunday, going into Monday morning, we can wake up with some really positive good news, okay? Something very expansive, something very lucky, something very blessed, something very divine. Also, I don't know if those of you in California have been paying attention, but there's been like a lotto thing. California Lotto. Hold on. Where there's something at like like a billion or something right now. Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the Powerball jackpot is at 1 billion for the second time this year. And I the download that I was getting is that we're gonna have some lucky winners with this new moon. So Sagittarius is a sign of gambling. Sagittarius rules gambling, and Sagittarius has a lot to do with luck and divine opportunity because it's ruled by Jupiter. And it's connected to the ninth house. So what I'm getting is like I do think that we're gonna see some Powerball winners, or we're gonna see some people coming home with some big winnings with this new moon in Sag and like coming out of the weekend with moon opposite Jupiter, you know? But yeah, family planning, family planning, what I meant by that was actually making plans with family, not like, having babies. That could be a thing. But moon opposite Jupiter on Sunday, Monday morning, I does feel like people are waking up to like some people are waking up to good positive news, and stuff like that. Anthony said, let's put our money together. I'm ready to be rich and unbothered. I know, right? I feel you on that. I'm ready to be rich and unbothered. Yes, I'm feeling that. Yeah. Sun Mars together. There is some bossy babies being born next week. Next week and the week following, there is some bossy babies being born, okay, who are attached to their mom, okay? Any babies that are born this upcoming year, okay, for the last 6 months or the next 6 months, okay, they are going to be really attached to their mom. And they have karma with their mother, okay? And in mothers, okay, I think this is like a general statement. We all have karma with our children. Every parent has karma with their children. But okay, these particular children that are born last 6 months, the next 6 months, the mother and the child have a particular special karmic connection or karmic story that they need to figure out. Okay. And it has a lot to do with deep emotional connection and deep emotional reciprocity. My homegirl just had a baby in October, yes. Because of the Jupiter in Cancer. The Jupiter in Cancer. Also, what I will say, another download I'm getting, there's an energy of the miracle baby, the rainbow baby, The baby that we lost in our 20s or our 30s, that baby, that pregnancy, the opportunity for that soul to come back, the miracle baby, that energy's in the air. It's going to be in the air for the next 6 months, and it's been in the air for the last 6 months. Okay. And we're really going to see it around February and March. There's going to be a lot of really beautiful, miraculous pregnancy experiences. Okay. That people are going to have, to where they thought, oh, I couldn't get pregnant, or, I wasn't sure if I was able to, or the doctor told me, blah, 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 blah. Okay. We don't listen to doctors nowadays because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Okay. And that's on T. All right. Today's doctors, listen, they have no experience. Okay. All they have is book smarts, but they don't know how to be a doctor. They don't have the experience of doctoring people. Okay. Because true doctors are about trying to heal and help people. And today's doctors are not trying to heal and help people. They're trying to make a fucking dollar. And that's the biggest problem with all the professions that we expect moral clarity and moral like truth with. Same thing with lawyers. It's the same thing. Lawyers should be fighting for truth and justice, but no, they're not. Because why? They've been corrupted by money. Same thing with doctors. Doctors have been corrupted by money. Okay. This is why I don't expect a doctor or a lawyer to be moral or righteous or ethical nowadays. Because what I've noticed is like, and this is my experience, not just mine, but also with clients, is that these people, they've gotten into it for money. They're doing it for money, right? All they want is money. Therefore, they're not, it's like the doctors and lawyers of today did not become doctors and lawyers to fight for justice or to heal people. They become doctors and lawyers because they grew up with parents that told them that these professions are make you a lot of money. That's why. And so what we have right now is we have these doctors and lawyers that are only there because of money, not realizing like, wait a minute, you were supposed to get into this work to fight for truth, to fight for justice. You're supposed to get into this work to heal people and help people and be of service to people, but that's not why they're in it. So, it's unfortunate, but that's just where we're at right now, right? That's what happened. Capitalism corrupts, my loves. In case you didn't notice, capitalism, whenever it gets its grimy hands on things, it corrupts things, right? We're seeing it. We're also seeing it with the spiritual community. Look at the way capitalism has co-opted spirituality. Look at the way capitalism is trying to co-opt astrology and tarot and esotericism, right? It's like capitalism is trying to just sell that shit to us. It's just trying to it like what it does, it co-ops it, it packages it, it makes it a product, it makes it something to be profited over, and then it just sells it back to us in a bastardized, inauthentic form, in a bastardized, inauthentic version of it, right? This is why a big part of my spiritual journey has actually been renouncing material things. Like, this is why I've stopped buying crystals, I've stopped buying tarot cards, because I don't want my spiritual practice and my spiritual journey to be about, things and objects, because it's not. It's not. Okay? The most profoundly spiritual people actually renounce the material world. They actually let go of all their shit. They're like, I don't want nothing anymore. And I realized that last year. Or actually, was it in 2023? It could have been 2023. I think 2023, I had a spiritual awakening in a way where I realized I was like, I don't want anything. Like, I don't want anything. I don't want, like, material wise. Like, I have my comforts, I have my things that I love, right? I still buy things. I still get tarot decks, of course, because that's like I'm a collector and I just love tarot decks. But I'm not doing it I'm not thinking it's spiritual anymore. Like, I'm not seeing that as part of my spiritual practice, you know? True spiritual practice is something that is personal and it's deep and it's within ourselves. It's not external, it's not tangible, it can't be bought, it can't be purchased. A lot of people think that, oh, if I just dress the part and I buy the crystals you can't purchase enlightenment. You can't purchase spiritual awareness. You can't purchase spiritual development. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. Okay. Those are things It's actually opposite. It's actually, a lot of spiritual development and spiritual awareness and even intuitive development comes from detachment, renouncing the material world, renouncing things like money, renouncing things like your desires, renouncing things like even sometimes love, sex, pleasure. You renounce those things, and that's where you get, spiritual awareness and spiritual enlightenment, and that's how you evolve and that's how you become, right? So I just want you guys to be mindful of this. I don't know why, I don't know how we got here. I don't know why the fuck I'm talking about this, but here we are. So, just want to share that insight with you guys. And I also think that had a lot to do with with Uranus and Taurus for me. I think Uranus and Taurus for me as a Scorpio stellium, Uranus and Taurus has, over the last 7 years, has had a lot to do with kind of like my own liberation from the material world and kind of like understanding that I'm not going to find any kind of peace or joy or enlightenment in the material world. I've realized that. It's like there's no amount of money, there's no amount of objects, there's no amount of things, there's no amount of crystals, there's no amount of tarot cards, there's no amount of whatever that's going to bring me that deep sense of inner peace or that's going to actually help me spiritually evolve. It's just that's not how it works, my love. You know? All right. So, like I was saying though, I was talking about miracle babies and stuff like that this upcoming year. Yes. Well, Moon opposite Jupiter, Sunday going to Monday, um, is going to be very beneficial, and it could bring a lucky, magical opportunity for us. And I really think we need to be leaning into where spirit is guiding us and where spirit is taking us, and kind of like leaning into our intuition right now and listening to our heart space, and also kind of asking Jupiter, like, what do you want for me? I think with this new moon in Sag, and I'll talk more about this on Friday, we need to really ask Jupiter, where do you want me to go? Like, what is my work right now? What is the new frontier? What is the new vision? What is the new dream? What is the higher purpose? What is the higher calling? If you are someone that's been confused about that, if you've been unsure about that, literally ask Jupiter. Sit with yourself in silence, do a little meditation or a prayer. Be like, Jupiter, what do you want from me? Where should I go? What should I do? What is the bigger vision? What is the bigger dream? Okay. What would bring me peace and fulfillment? Okay. What would bring me a deep sense of peace and a deep sense of fulfillment? And then just be open to receive and see how Jupiter answers that question over the next week, over the next 2 weeks, over the next 3 months, over the next 6 months. Sometimes it takes a long time for us to get an answer that we're looking for because the answer is not clear and it's not ready, or we're not ready for it, or the answer is more complex. Okay, it's more layered than we think. You know, we're so impatient as people. Like, we do not, we really, it's funny. I'm talking to, the moon. I'm talking like I literally, the moon in Capricorn, Mars in Capricorn, Capricorn season starting. Like, we need to cultivate patience with spirit and patience with receiving answers from spirit as well. We a lot of times, right? We ask something and we want something and we want it now. We want it now. We want the answer now. We want spirit to give us the clarity now, right? But that's not how it works. Okay? Everything is divine timing. Everything's on God's time. As much control that you want to have over the timing in your life, you know what astrology has showed me? Astrology has showed me that we are all functioning in a paradigm where is not time is not something that we have like control over or agency over. We're all functioning in a paradigm where it's like, okay, this is okay. What am I trying to say? We're trying to get into alignment with time, divine timing, right? So it's kind of like this. I think of it, the metaphor of like surfing came to me, or like boogie boarding. Okay. Our goal is, when it comes to divine timing, or when it comes to our relationship with time, our goal is to learn to navigate the waves in however the waves adjust. Sometimes during, right, there's going to be periods in our life where the waters are really, really choppy and where there's really strong waves. And this can literally show up where things are moving very fast in our life or things are feeling very chaotic and things are happening very quickly, very, very fast. And when we're in those periods, we need to honor that. And we need to be like, okay, let me go ahead and get my heavy duty surfboard out, right? Like this is a period where I'm just gonna have to like struggle and I have to work a little bit harder and the water's gonna be a little bit choppy and I just gotta be a little bit more like, I just gotta be a little bit more focused. I gotta have a little bit more energy. I gotta put in a little bit more effort, right? I just gotta be a little bit more flexible, whatever. But then there's these periods in our life where the waters are just quiet and silent and nothing is happening. Nothing is moving. It feels like we're stagnant. It feels like we're stuck, but it's literally we are just in a holding period or we're just in a period of nothingness. Okay? And it's like when we're in those periods, a lot of times we feel restless, we feel anxious, and we try to force, we try to rush ourselves through those periods. When actually, spirit and divine timing is telling us rest, wait, be patient, sit in the nothingness, get to know yourself, right? Like there's not really much happening for you right now. You aren't, your narrative, your story is not really moving right now. So like just let it be what it is, right? And so, a big part of developing a healthy relationship with time and divine timing is understanding what phase you're in or where you're at that particular moment in time and developing that relationship with spirit and time so you can have an intuitive understanding of when it's time to stop or when it's time to go, when it's time to work or when it's time to rest, right? When it's time to like move and take action and when it's time to like be patient and like wait. You see what I'm saying? Because like it can be really in that discernment, that kind of inner knowing, that understanding, what should I be doing right now with timing, right? It's really hard, it's really difficult because it doesn't apply to everyone at the same time, right? This could be a period of go for one person, but for another person, it's a period of rest. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I think, we want to really develop a relationship with spirit, with the divine, with also Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, planets that have a lot to do with timing, okay? Especially Saturn and Mercury, because they're planets that are timing. We develop a relationship with those planets. We develop a relationship with spirit so that, we're able to pick up on the cues and the clues of when they're telling us, okay, now it's time to go, right? Now this is for you, right? Um, Anthony said, "Yep, basically telling the story of my last 6 months." Yeah, it's because it we can really cause ourselves a lot of distress and a lot of suffering, and we can really be hard on ourselves when we're feeling like things aren't moving, or we feel like things should be productive, or we should be productive, or we should, have shit figured out, or we should have opportunities come in, or things should be moving forward, but they're not, right? because like some because it's like it's just not the season for that. It's just we're that's not the timing. It's not the time cycle that you're in, right? I mean, we could cause ourselves a lot of distress and suffering because we're just not aware that we're in a holding period, right? We're in the waiting room right now. We haven't gone to seeing the doctor yet, right? Like, so I think patience is very important. And I'm going to echo this message around patience all Capricorn season because I do think that, Capricorn as a sign is here to teach us about patience and is about here to teach us about timing and developing an intuitive relationship with life when it comes to timing. You know, like we need to know our own seasons and our own cycles. And I feel like when we really get to know ourselves well and when we really develop a healthy relationship with time in divine timing, we'll understand that we're never early, we're never late, we're always on time. Everything is happening as it should be, exactly when it should be. Because if this was any other way, if something was meant to happen at any other time in any other way, it would. Period. But because it didn't happen at that time with that person in that way, it wasn't meant to. Because it didn't. Period. Punto. It's that simple. It really is that simple. You know? So this is why like when shit don't work out, I'm not bothered. Because why? I know that divine timing, it will work out if it's meant to eventually. I just have that understanding, I have that faith, I have that relationship with spirit and time in that way, right? I'm always feeling like I'm delayed. I'm always feeling like I'm behind time. I'm always feeling late. Um, and maybe that's a certain thing that I have to work on in my own relationship with time. Some people are always feeling like early, right? But I also I'm in this place of awareness where I'm just trying to be as present with myself as possible. I'm trying to be as present with myself as possible. And being present, being in the moment as possible, when you're really, really present, when you are just very in the moment, we're not really overly anxious or concerned or paranoid or trying to control the past or the future, you know? Like, if things were meant to work out with a situation, with a job, with a person, whatever, or even when it, like when I'm talking about timing, it will work out. Like it will work out. If it's not meant to, it's not, you know? Um, and sometimes we just try to force, we try to force, we try to control, we try to demand, sometimes I always think of like people that just like throw hissy fits when some shit doesn't work out their way. And like I think it's all of us, we've all been this. We've all done this. We've all been that person, who's like, fuck, this didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Fuck, like, I wanted this at this time and I'm not there yet. We get frustrated and we get anxious and we get mad and we get angry and we get sad and we get paranoid and we get all this. Why put ourselves through all that, right? When our work is to be present and to be in a place of acceptance with all things, you know? Because the more willing that we are able, the more willing and able we are with acceptance of life, with acceptance of timing around things, with acceptance of how things unfolded, the less resistance we're going to experience with life. And the quicker we're going to be able to like move on and just like allow life to continue to cycle things through. You know what I mean? All we have to do is look around in life. We just have to look around in nature to see that nothing stays. Nothing is permanent. Nothing lasts forever. And that's the truth. That is the truth. You guys, you got to understand this. Nothing ever is ever going to stay the same. Everything is always changing. Okay. Nothing is ever going to last forever. That's just the truth. Okay. Because we live in a impermanent universe. We live in a universe where things are dying and being born always simultaneously. We can look to the stars for this. We can look to life for this. We can look to nature. We can look to the cycle of life for this, for that truth, right? But what's interesting is even though that's our lived experience, our psyche, our consciousness, our soul, our spirit is timeless. Is timeless. We have this awareness of the infinite. We have this awareness of this concept, of this idea that things are ever present, things do not change, and that things are consistent, right? Because that's our soul, that's our consciousness, which is existing within this realm, but our soul is not bound to the laws of ending and beginning that this material existence is. It's not. Our soul and our spirit actually exists outside of this physical realm. This is why we have this fear, this awareness that our body is going to die one day, but our consciousness and our psyche is not. It's going to live on. And then eventually, at some point, for some of us, we are going to come back into a new body, right? Exactly. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. This is super important. I really want you guys to understand this because the more that we can kind of understand this contradiction between like the this contradiction between like the infinite and impermanent. Okay, this contradiction between the infinite and the impermanent, right? So the infinite is unchanging, is everlasting, where the impermanent is always changing. It never lasts. But our consciousness and our psyche, we got to be able to hold both of these truths, and we got to be able to actually experience both of these things like simultaneously. We got to hold both of these truths that seem opposite to each other or that seem in contradiction to each other. We got to be able to hold them in conjunction. We got to be able to hold them as truths that seem that seem like polar. They are kind of like a polarity. They seem to be opposing each other in a way, but they're both true. You're both true, you know? And the more that we can accept these as a truth and hold space for both of them and honor them, the more that spiritually and emotionally, psychically, we can allow things to transition in our life and allows things to kind of like move through our life and cycle through our life in a way that isn't heartbreaking or sad, you know? But I want you to understand something. A big reason why we're here on this planet is to experience the impermanent, to experience the endings and the death. Because on the other side of the veil, nothing lives and nothing dies. Everything is, and everything's everlasting. So we come here to earth to experience things like death, to experience things like suffering and loss. We come here to experience those things and to actually go through the emotional and the mental and the physical experience of these things. Because on the other side of the veil, we don't experience those things at all. Because on the other side of the veil, everything is impermanent and everything's everlasting and everything's unchanging. You see what I'm saying? So we come here as infinite souls to have a temporary human experience to go through what it is to die. We all signed up not only to live, but also to die. We're all going to die one day. Every one of us. Our body will be going back to the earth, and we're all going to have to experience death. That's the only way out of this bitch. The only way out is dying. Okay? So, this kind of tells us that, like, from a spiritual perspective, right, we've signed up to go through endings as human beings, to experience what it is to go through an ending, to go through a loss, to go through a death, to go through, the releasing of things, the detachment of things, the surrender of things. I had this for a certain amount of time, and then it left. It could be a pet, it could be a job, it could be your parents, it could be a lover, it could be a friend, it could be anything. It could be an illness. Oh, you were sick for a certain amount of time, and then it left, and now you're better. Nothing is ever going to stay. Nothing is ever going to be the same. You only are going to get that once you're back on the other side of the veil. Once you move on, once you pass away and you go back to the other side and everything is all peachy and grand and nice and sweet and comforting and normal and whatever, right? That's where you're going to get that. But now, since you're here in this body, no, you're not going to get that. And I feel like the more that spiritually aware we are of this truth of impermanence and that things are always in flow and things are always changing and things are always dying and being reborn and being born or whatever, the more able that we are to stay in flow with divine timing. Because we delay a lot of our growth and our expansion, a lot of our opportunity out of attachment, out of staying in things, staying with people, staying a certain type of person, in resisting the change, resisting the evolution, the transformation, It's ultimately at the end of the day, it's your choice. And that's what the universe and spirit is always going to remind you to. And this comes, and let me tell you, this is something that comes out for me when I do readings for myself, especially tarot readings. Spirit will be like, will turn a situation or circumstance around on me and be like, okay, well, what do you want to do? What are you going to do? What is your choice and your decision? What is your course of action? What do you think? And I think once when we really develop a relationship with our own spirit team, with our own guides, and we have that like connection to them, what we realize, and this is what I've realized, this is just for me, from my my experience and from developing my own relationship with my spirit team, is they're not just gonna go ahead and help you all the time and give you answers. They're not. Mm-mm. They're gonna challenge you and they're gonna test you and they're gonna ask you, well, what do you think you should do? Well, what are you going to do? What is going to be your choice, your decision, right? They'll give you information, they'll give you the best, they'll give you guidance, they'll support you, they'll even give you opportunities and stuff like this. But you got to be the one to take the action. You got to be the one to make the choice or the decision. You got to be the one to say yes or say no. Because they're still bound to the laws of free will. Our spirit team, our guides, they cannot supersede our free will. They cannot. They need to honor our free will. They can't encroach too much on our own plan. You see what I'm saying? And the testing that we signed up to experience here on earth. We have certain testing that our soul signed up for that we have to experience. And the only way we're going to pass those tests is with free will choices and free will choices and decisions and actions, right? Spirit is going to give you the guidance, is going to give you the information. Spirit's going to even give you the plan sometimes. But then it's up for you to do the work. You got to be the one to do the work. You got to be the one to put the plan into action. You got to be the one to make the decision or the choice. You see what I'm saying? They can't do it for us, right? And we don't want to outsource our own free will, our own agency to our spirit, to spirituality or to our spiritual team, or even to like a pastor or a priest or a mentor or a coach or a parent. You cannot be outsourcing your free will, your choices, your decisions to others. You can't. So let me tell you something. When you do that, you're going to be led astray. You're going to be led astray. A lot of times, it may be in alignment with what you want to do, but many times it won't be. Many times it won't be. You're going to go ahead and take this guidance, take this advice, and be like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and do what this person told me to do. And you do the thing, and then you still end up at square one because that wasn't your own free will choice or decision. You didn't get it. You didn't learn the lesson clearly, right? So it's very important, that we develop a relationship with spirit. We develop a relationship with timing. We develop a relationship with the planets. We develop a relationship with the self so that we can make these informed, confident decisions and choices in our life that are going to bring the best results from our lived experience. Because that's the test. The test is your free will. The test, free will is a gift, but free will is a fucking test. In case you didn't notice, okay? Like I pull cards. I swear, I pull cards for myself, and you know what I hear? I'll look at I hear this. I hear this so often. It's so crazy because when I pull cards and I'm like reading for myself, I'm literally like I get these downloads and I'm like hearing things or I'm like getting information in my mind's eye that's not my own. It's just like, but it's like they're always asking me, "What are you gonna do?" My spirit team's like, "Well, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What action are you gonna take? When are you going to be ready? When are you going to decide? Right? And like they just, and I swear they be fed up with me. I be fed up with myself, but they be fed up with me sometimes because they're like, I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting for you to get your shit together. I'm waiting for you to make the decision. I'm waiting for you to enroll in that class. I'm waiting for you to get that going. I'm waiting for you to begin this. It's like they're on the other side just being like, dude, we got all this for you. What the fuck are you doing? You know, like, and they be giving me this energy. My spirit team be showing me, they be reading me like, I'm fed up with you. I'm fed up with you. You already know what you got to do. You already know the answers. Okay, like you're not ignorant. All right, you're over here doing readings for everyone else and giving everyone else guidance, buddy. What are you doing for yourself? Why are you not listening? Okay. And it's funny because I go to other readers. I'll go to like Reiki practitioners who are able to connect to my spirit team, or I'll go to other readers. I don't go and get readings very often, but they'll give me the same energy. They're like, well, they'll be like, well, your spirit team is coming through really strong. And, they're coming through really aggressively, and they're kind of fed up with you, and they kind of they're telling me to tell you, like, what are you doing? You need to like be doing this and this, and you're not doing this. And I'm like, I fucking know. This is why I don't go and get readings by those people anymore, because right. So but it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to have that relationship with spirit, to have that relationship with your guides. But you got to understand, when you start developing, when you are on a spiritual journey, and when you start really speaking to your spirit team, you start developing a relationship with your guides. You're thinking, or you may think, oh, they're gonna be all nice and be all sweet and be all. No, a lot of times they're not. They're not. Your spirit team is going to be very cold. They're going to be very rigid. They're going to be very intense about it sometimes. Sometimes they're going to challenge you. They're going to push you to do better and be better, because they know what we're capable of, right? God, spirit, the divine knows our potential, can see all the futures ahead of us, knows what we're capable of. And 99% of human beings are not living up to the potential of who they're capable of being. I swear, the majority of human beings are really selling themselves short. They're really not stepping into the fullness of their being, the fullness of their potential. They're not getting the most out of life that they could be getting. And it has a lot to do with free will. Free will. You got to decide to do it. You got to take action. And people that have really interesting, fun, fulfilled lives, one of the things I've noticed that they do, they're very involved in their life. They're very involved. And what I mean by that is, like, they're participating in life. They're waking up every day, they're going outside, they're talking to people, they're taking classes, they're at this organization, they're traveling here, they're hanging out with this person. They're like very involved with life. And it's just them connecting with life, and just them interacting with life, and just them putting energy, their own energy into the world, that brings them the success. And it's like, it's crazy. And that's all. It's like, it's just them being active and interacting. It's just them connecting. It's just them sharing themselves with the world that literally brings them the success, that brings them the joy, that brings them the fulfillment. That's it. It's just about interaction, agency, you know, actually getting up in like living and like doing, like it's simple. We got to get up. We got to live. We got to interact. We got to socialize. We got to connect. We got to build community. We got to participate in life. The more that we participate and show up for our own lived experience, the more that we get out of it. Your life becomes like a movie, becomes like a novel, becomes like a story. It becomes like a television episode sometimes, But that's more interesting. That's more exciting. That's more fulfilling, right? If you stay at home all day and do nothing, if you're not interacting with anybody, if you're not learning anything, if you're not curious about anything, if you're not going out in the world and participating and playing, if you're not doing anything with your life, don't expect much from it. Period. You get in, you get out what you put in. What you get out of life is what you put in. Okay? Yeah, look what Artie said. Basically, don't be an NPC. Yes, if you want to be an NPC, like 95% of people in the world, do that. Okay? Go do that. But if you want to be a main character energy, if you want to really like stand out, if you really want to make a mark, if you want your life to just be interesting and fun and exciting, participate. Get to meet people, get to know people, you know? Another thing which is so interesting, and this is just me, I'm just kind of rambling, but it's okay, I don't care because, everyone's here for it. Um, Another thing I think is really interesting is we've become very, very hypersensitive as human beings, and we've become very averse to more challenging lived experiences, which is why so many of us are like inhibited. And so many of us are kind of like repressed, or so many of us are kind of like withholding with ourselves. Like, we need to allow ourselves to get hurt more. We need to make ourselves more available to conflict and disagreement. We need to make ourselves more available to hardship and challenges. We need to challenge ourselves more. We need to like push ourselves a little bit harder. And we need to actually allow ourselves to experience the fullness of life, even the hard and the difficult things. We can't be so sensitive and so withholding. You know, we really need to allow ourselves to go out in the world to develop a little bit of grit. We need to get our feelings hurt. We need to cry. We need to be disappointed. We need to go through fallouts because all those things are necessary evolutionary points for our soul's development. We got to build up resilience. Yeah. And the world is going to shape you, you know? When you go and live your life fully and you participate in the world shapes you, the world enhances you, the world refines you, the world builds you up. The world is going to bring you a sense of purpose, a sense of mission. Okay? The world is going to bring you community, all right? But you got to kind of go out there and you got to kind of get roughed up a little bit, you know? We're not here in this lived experience to have like an easy, peachy, happy-go-lucky, sunshine, rainbows, teddy bears lived experience all the time. Yes, it's going to be like that in moments, but it's not going to be like that all the time. Many times we're going to be getting roughed up, we're going to be getting our feelings hurt, we're going to be getting rejected, we're going to get taken advantage of, we're going to get right, but that's all part of the journey as well. And we can't go ahead and hide away from life or shrink ourselves and minimize ourselves because we want to avoid getting hurt. You're going to get hurt. The being out in the world, you're going to get hurt. That's the truth. It's going to happen. And let it happen. Okay? Because you know what? You're going to grow so much through it. You're going to learn so much about yourself. You're going to grow through so much through it, and you're going to learn so much about yourself. Okay? Very important. So this new moon in Sag coming up, give yourself permission to be bigger than who you've been. Give yourself permission to take up space. Give yourself permission to travel and explore. Reconnect to curiosity, reconnect to passion, reconnect to the actual lived experience in the outside world. Get off the phone, get away from the computer, get out of the house, go outside. And I'm talking to myself too, because I'm a hermit. I am a hermit. I would rather be in my house, watching Netflix, playing video games, chilling, hanging out with my dog, because that's the easy, uncomplicated thing to do, right? But Spirit's really been telling me, Louis, it's time for you to be a citizen of the world. It's time for you to get out of this. Get out of your little hermit mode. Like, I've been a hermit in many lives, by the way. I've been like a hermit, like someone who's like been in solitude in many lifetimes. And my challenge in this lifetime is to actually be out in the world and participate. I don't know if I'm rising up to that challenge. I'm getting myself there, okay? But we're gonna do that. It sounds like a perfect time for a side quest. Yes, yes. Sag is definitely Sag Gemini. That's the access of questing, side quests. Be uncomfortable, you'll survive. Yeah, yeah. So this is why Spirit's been telling me, like, bro, move out of the country. The fuck get out of the U.S. Go. Where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna land? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it next year. I'm moving out of the country. Because that's it. Just feels so right. Like, Spirit is like telling me, bro. You need to like go out in the world, see what we got for you. That's what Spirit's been showing me. They're like, We got so many cool things for you. We got the coolest people. We got a relationship. We got a whole community. There's a whole world that's waiting for you, Louis. But you got to get the fuck up and you got to get out and you got to go and you got to move, you know? I'm thinking about moving to Bali. I'm like 95% committed to Bali. Someone said Africa. Europe, Africa. Maybe I'll end up in Europe. I've never been to Africa, but love to go. I'll visit there before I move there, but I'm thinking about Bali. Okay, my loves, well, it's 2:30 and I am hungry. I gotta go eat. I haven't eaten anything. And my little baby boy is just chilling right here. And I need to take him on a walk. And I think it's not raining anymore. So, but I love you all so much. Thank you guys for hanging out and for listening to me rant. But also for the last 30 minutes, kind of listening to this little spiritual insight that I gave around like divine timing and really developing a relationship with spirit and really cultivating that intuitive relationship with life. I really do feel that we need to have an intuitive relationship with life. We need to have an understanding and a relationship with life that is very deep, that's very profound, and that's very intimate. And that's very much our own lived experience. We really, really got to really develop a deep, intimate relationship with our own life. The majority of people, this is what I see, they cause themselves a lot of confusion and suffering because they're busy comparing themselves to other people and they're busy paying too much attention and giving too much real estate to others. They're paying too much attention to other people. They're giving too much, space in their life to other people. They're allowing other people to confuse them. They're comparing themselves to other people. And this is why a necessary part of the spiritual journey is about renunciation and isolation from the world to like get to know yourself and sit with yourself. Because once you really cultivate that deep relationship with yourself, with your own spirit, with your own soul, with your own individual lived experience, you're going to get so much clarity and then you're going to kind of know what is for you and what isn't for you, and you're going to stop living vicariously through others or stop comparing yourself to others, or even other people are not going to have so much influence on your life. you know Many people, we like to center other people in our lives because we're avoiding something within ourselves, or because we don't want to see ourselves clearly, or we don't want to get to know ourselves deeply, or because we're afraid of ourselves, or because we're scared of ourselves, or because we have a lot of doubt or a lot of paranoia, or we have a lot of, you know, insecurities and things like this, right? So, and I see this so often. I see there's a lot of people, they center other people in their life, and they're doing this as a matter of avoidance. It's like an escapism thing. It's like an avoidant escapism thing. It's like, well, if I'm like centering if I'm putting other people as the focus of my life, then I get to avoid my own bullshit. I get to avoid myself, right? And this is also, I think, why a lot of people do the celebrity thing. I think this is a celebrity culture thing as well. It's like, oh, if I like worship and center like, Taylor Swift as in my life, or if I worship and center like whatever celebrity, whatever, then I don't really have to get to know myself. I don't have to see myself. I don't have to really think about myself. I don't really have to pay attention to myself. And we got to be mindful of doing this. We don't want to do this. We really, really got to make ourselves the center of our life. You really got to center yourself. And sometimes centering yourself looks like it's going to bring like sadness or grief, because when you really start to get to know yourself, you're going to uncover things that are like really sad and really dark, really heavy. And you're going to be like, damn, like, fuck. But that's where the healing comes in. That's where the healing comes in. How are you going to heal what you don't know, what you're not aware of? You can't, you know? So I want you guys to think about this. I want you guys to sit with this. Okay? I want you guys to sit with this. All right? Like, is it a possibility that you've been centering other people in your life to avoid things within yourself? Some food for thought. Okay, beautiful people. I'm gonna leave you with that. I'm gonna leave you with that quandary. I'm gonna leave you with that question. I'm gonna leave you with that, that thought, that idea. Okay. Because yeah, I've done it. I've been there. I've done it. I've been there. Okay. All right, beautiful people. Have a good day. I'm gonna go ahead and post this on YouTube in a few hours. And everybody that donated, everybody that has been, present and who've been hanging out for the last few hours, thank you for being here. Also, want to let y'all know I opened up my calendar for January. So if anyone's interested in booking an appointment, my December is pretty much booked up. It's booked up, yeah. But January, I opened up my calendar for January. So if you're interested in booking an appointment with me, you kind of want to look into what 2026 is going to hold for you. You can go ahead and get on my calendar, okay? And yeah, I don't think I have the year ahead reading enabled, but maybe I think I'm gonna add that back. I think I'm gonna add that back. Only because I took it down over the last few months, the year ahead, because we were coming to the end of the year and it like didn't make a lot of sense. So I think I'm gonna add that back in the next few days. So if you guys wanted to book like a year ahead reading to see what 2026 is gonna offer, it's just the thing that's a little strange about the year ahead is astrologically speaking, your year starts on your birthday. So what's difficult about a year ahead reading is how many of us we have a birthday that's not we're not Capricorns, right? It's like we're not it's not doesn't so our year begins on our birthday astrologically speaking, and it goes into our next birthday. So doing a year ahead from like January of like 2026 to January 2027 could be a little difficult, a little hard because we're gonna have to look at like two different charts and it's just like a lot of work. But yeah, so that's why I kind of took down the year ahead astrology, but I'll find some other creative ways to kind of look at just 2026 overall. And maybe I won't be using, I don't know, maybe I'll just glance. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll see. I'll think about it though. I'll brainstorm some ideas around what a 2026 reading, what a year 2026 year ahead reading could look like, and try to make it kind of more astrologically. I don't try to make it astrologically make sense. Because yeah, what I realized is like the year ahead was getting like the year ahead reading was just confusing for a lot of people. If you're if you are an astrology fanatic, if you love astrology, you should be booking your year ahead readings or be getting solar return readings around your birthday because that's actually when your year starts. Okay. Our personal year doesn't start until our birthday. Does that make sense? So, we're not all entering 2020. Well, we're all entering 2026 at the same time, but, our own personal year and how that applies to us, especially if we're following astrology, um, it's based on our birthday. So it's connected to our birthday. Okay, my loves. All right, that's it. I'm done rambling. I promise. Love you guys. Have a beautiful, blessed day. Take care of yourselves. Be well. You guys are all amazing. I'm going to be back in California as of the 19th. I fly back on the 19th. So I want to do a little hangout thing. For those of you that are in California, especially if you're in the LA area, I want to do like a little holiday hangout thing when I'm back in Cali for the next I'm gonna be there for like a few weeks. I'm gonna be there till like the beginning of January. So if you are in California, if you weren't able to make our last make if you weren't able to make it to our last meet and greet, that we had like a lot of fun. That was like super fun. We're gonna do that again, and I'm hoping to see people that I wasn't able to see last time. So I'll give you guys more details on that. Okay. Because yeah, I want to do like I don't know. I'm kind of thinking of like I want to do like us. I want to do like a Sunday drag show type of thing where we all go to like maybe we all go to like Hamburger Mary's and we all like do a Sunday drag thing. We do like a brunch Sunday drag thing or something like that. I want to do something fun like that. Or the other thing that I was thinking was like doing a hike or we do like a big group hike for like a few hours. And then afterwards, we all go like eat at a restaurant or something like that. And we all like go hang out or something. So those are just two ideas that kind of came to me for our like little group meetup or something, a little holiday group meetup or something. So, but yeah, I definitely want to come to New York. Yeah, New York is definitely on my to-do list. And, doing like a New York meetup will be a lot of fun as well. So we'll do that. Yeah. So, okay, my loves, I love you all so much. Have a good day. Okay. I'll see you around. Okay. Bye.